Slow-mo.
First of all, welcome to the new camera that the township just installed over there in the corner. That is the live stream that is supposed to be up and running by October. Hopefully it will work, because in this town, some stuff doesn't work usually.
Tell us about it.
So there's a new camera over there, and that is the live stream thing that the township is going to live stream on YouTube. That's what we were told. So I could retire.
Forget about it.
I just want to clarify something. That what happened over here, if you saw, when they were reading all the big zoning changes, the board didn't ask any questions. Not even a single question. Hey, this was recommended by the advisory committee, this was recommended, that was recommended. They went through all of that. It looked bad on them. So they did their play. They brought Brian Flannery to bring some another 6 zoning changes, small stuff, and the board will look into it. Like yesterday, they were looking into this, that, tonight, like they are serious about what they're doing. But in this 6 zoning changes, most of them were denied, recommended denied. But when it came to the big zoning changes, next to you guys, next to everybody, they didn't even ask any questions. Not how many houses. So I'm just clarifying is that there was a little play over here with my friend Brian Flannery. So it just to make them look bad. Make them look good. He's being paid to make them look good, because they look bad because nobody understands why they're doing it. As we discussed yesterday. Makes no sense. If anybody has a problem with me speaking, please tell me.
I got your back, don't worry, I got your back.
Maybe some of the board members have a problem. I don't know. What? No, I don't want to use the mic because the mic might be a problem.
Only if they're live streaming.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, you carry.
I think you should consider it a compliment that they said you were intimidating people, and that's why they weren't.
And he was in Wayne. He was the assistant superintendent Wayne.
What year?
I want you guys to remember,
2008, 2009.
Justin Flensbaum was the chairman of the advisory committee. He's the one that's really pushing it. He's not pushing it on his own. I don't think he's making any money out of it. He's being controlled by the high-ups. Therefore, is the VAD is recommending him for all things of post. Just remember him when he comes up for votes. He's the one that caused this disaster. He was part of it. He was the chairman of this advisory board that Noreen Gill, by the end she was there, and her friend Simon was there, and they stopped all the zoning changes as soon as she got sick and Simon was not able to come, and other members, the whole zoning change got in things. So you had, you guys, the residents of Lakewood had. Well, you have a problem with me speaking on stuff? Oh, he loves, okay. So just remember, when he goes for re-election on something, he looks to get the endorsement of the VAD, of Aaron Cutler. Yeah, you have a question?
Could you repeat his name again?
Justin Flensbaum. He has like a big, how we call it is the Kalabach style here.
Could you talk louder, please?
Yeah, I'll try.
Justin was the one that came to our Fairways. Yeah, that was Justin that came and spoke to us.
Now, I'm going to stop.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The time, date, location of this meeting was published in the Asbury Park Press and posted on the bulletin board in the office of the Township of Lakewood at least 48 hours in advance. The public has the right to attend this meeting, and reasonable, comprehensive minutes of this meeting will be available for public inspection. This meeting meets the criteria of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Grunberger. Mr. Franklin.
Here.
Mr. Henderson. Mr. Flansbaum. Mr. Herzl.
Here.
Mr. Renner. Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Brockos. Here. Mr. Garfield. Brenner does not. Flansbrough. Recording is on, thank you.
Gentlemen, do you state your names for the record, please?
Martin Truscott, Stan Slab.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth and whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Let the record reflect Mr. Flansbrough, Ms. Gasko.
All right, Mr. Herzl, first of all, I went home for lunch today and I left my jacket on the back of my chair in the kitchen, which I didn't realize till it was time to come here, so.
You get cold.
I've always worried that this would happen, and now tonight it finally happened, so I apologize for being here in shirt sleeves. I just want to go over this process again. As you know, Mr. Schauer took over from me last night at 8 o'clock, when I had to go to another continuation of a hearing in a different town. And I know there's some question about the process and the procedure. I just want to go through this one more time. You know, as we go through these hearings, what the board has in front of it is a legislative document. It's the master plan. This is it. You know, think of when the Congress enacts a law, or the state legislature has a bill before it, and the legislative representative is going to vote for the law. I mean, some laws are one paragraph. Some laws, like Obamacare, are 1,000 pages. So I'm told. I never actually read it. I don't think anyone else did either. But I'm just trying to be funny, but that's not working. The point is, you know, you have this proposed legislation. The planning board is the entity that is responsible for adopting the master plan, which is the vision, the constitution, the controlling principles that will guide the governing body and how to adopt land use regulations that will carry out the goals and objectives of the master plan. The master plan itself is not a land use ordinance. What that does is it sets the framework and the principles that the governing body will take into account when it adopts land use regulations. That's why it doesn't make sense for you to talk about what setbacks should be, or what, you know, how big of a landscape buffer should be between a commercial building. You're really talking about the big picture items. When you say, well, you know, should we be pro-growth? Should we be pro-environment? Should we encourage the governing body to have through streets to relieve traffic congestion? The board really can't do that, but you can say there's a crying, and I'm making these up as examples. I know that we generally talk about. You can say there's an important need, and the master plan recognizes that we have to alleviate traffic along these corridors, and we recommend that, you know, you encourage the development of through streets. We have concerns with population densities, and in these neighborhoods, this is the appropriate density for zoning. So we, you know, it should be whatever the appropriate zoning designation is. So the board takes this into account. Now, in this case, there's been a lot of work that's been done, been finished, completed before it got to this level. You've had committees that have spent a lot of time that have dug into the details of this. You've had the planners that have been working on this for a long period of time, and they've put a document in front of you. And the board has to decide whether it wants to adopt that document. Part of the process allows the public now to come in and make comment. That's why I've said throughout this hearing that it's really public comment. It's not a cross-examination. It's not grilling people. It's just saying, well, I think that you should do this, or you should do that, or I think this zone should be changed to this. It's not just like in here, but it's limited to public comment. So, you know, and then based on those comments, based on your deliberations, based on how this all percolates, you make your decision. Say, do I want to adopt this, or do we need to modify it? And since we've gone over many hearings, many people have testified and given their input, the board at some time will have to direct the planner to say, make the following changes, or don't make any changes, or make these additions, and bring back to us a document that reflects what our decision is, tentatively, And then once it's on file for 10 days, we read it over, we make sure this is what we actually want. Then that's what gets adopted. And, you know, it's hard to do all this because you can't say, well, how do I adopt legislation when I don't know what it actually is? And then once you make the revisions, that's actually a little different than what we voted on. But you can come back and back again until you get it just the way you want it. So my point is all of your decisions up to now are basically tentative. And I think tonight, after you've heard the last comment, synthesize all that and direct your planner on exactly what you want to see in this document. And then I think you can still change your mind up until the time the gavel comes down and the whole thing is voted on. But, you know, so that's what we've got to do tonight. Now, I understand that you've taken all the input from your planners, and now you want to make certain that everybody's had a chance to say what they'd like to say as part of the democratic process. The chairman has the authority and the ability to limit testimony to that which is relevant and that which is not repetitive. So, you know, a lot of people have had the chance to speak, so, and you can allow them to speak more if you want, but you kind of have to keep it focused. That's your responsibility. So what I understand we're doing tonight is that you're going to let everybody have their say, who hasn't had their say already, and then at that point, everything will be taken into account, and you'll direct the planner to make the changes that you deem are appropriate. And I say, up till now, everything that's been done to this moment is preliminary. And will remain preliminary until the gavel comes down after you've made your vote, which is what's it set for, October 3rd. Excuse me, October 3rd, presuming we get it on file 10 days before.
10 days before.
So I don't know if the board has any questions about what I just went over.
So basically, I would open it to the public. I know most of the public over here have spoken during the last 3 meetings. Anybody who did not speak or anybody has something to add that was not said on record, can you please come forward? So it's open for.
Are you inviting us to come up?
Yes, the public is open already. So please state your name for the record, and you have to be sworn over from.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joyce Blay, editor/reporter, NJ News and Views, that's and with an ampersand, www.joyceblaynews.and as in Victor, IEWS.com, 311 Floral Way, Toms River, New Jersey, 08755.
Hold on one second. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you'll give before the board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
And please speak into the mic.
Should I go ahead?
All right. We're trying to keep everyone informed.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you. Last year and this year, I attended several meetings of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, which was chaired by Mr. Flansbaum on the dais. I also observed several meetings that were videotaped by my colleague in the audience. During those meetings, I observed numerous violations of state law under the Open Public Meetings Act, whereupon I contacted the Ocean County prosecutor and filed a complaint not only this year but last year. Mr. Coronado, the Ocean County prosecutor, contacted Lakewood Township officials who included, according to them, Stephen C. Kerr, the township attorney, and as I also understand, 2016 Mayor of Lakewood, Menasha Miller. I also apprised Committeeman D'Elia of what I observed to be violations of state law under the Open Public Meetings Act. After all of this was said and done, I was asked by Committeeman Lichtenstein to meet with him in the mayor's office upstairs. We had a very pleasant discussion last year. Despite our discussion based on further violations of what I know to be state law, I contacted the Ocean County prosecutor once again and met with attorneys from that office last week. I also contacted officials of the New Jersey Planning Commission, I really must ask the planning board, based on my communications with those officials, not to move forward with adoption of any recommendations that were made by Mr. Flansbaum's advisory committee that I observed to be meeting in violation of state law under the Open Public Meetings Act, also referred to as the Sunshine Law. I really was very disappointed to observe these transgressions because my professional association's New Jersey branch advises members, which include myself, to speak out whenever we witness a violation of state law under the Open Public Meetings Act. And I continued to see meetings that were illegally noticed as executive session. I observed the township manager threaten members of the public and my colleagues with the police if they didn't leave the meeting. And most disturbingly of all, earlier this summer, I observed the manager push a member of the public out the doors of his department, and I photographed him locking the mayor's office and admitting members of an advisory panel and developers into the room who requested zoning changes from which they stood to profit. All of these constitute transgressions that I now have to ask my professional association to challenge by funding them through our legal fund established for that purpose. Again, I ask all of you up here to consider what I've told you and not to adopt any of these recommendations, which now must be challenged in court of law under state law. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please take the name.
Carol Suckmill, 59 Foxwood Road.
Swear affirm testimony you give before the board will be true and whole truth and nothing but.
I do. I really didn't want to get up here again this evening. I've spoken twice before, but I'll do it anyway. Good evening. Once again, I thank you for letting our residents voice their opinion. Last evening, you heard density discussed from two different viewpoints. A mother pleading with you to stop building. She feared that without income from her empty rental, her family would lose their home. She provided the board with figures citing the large number of empty apartments and homes that are presently available. So, it would seem to me that if people moving to Lakewood need housing, there is an abundance of housing available. Then we heard from someone studying at BMG. He claimed to speak for all of those intimidated by Mr. Klein. Was he speaking for one student, 100 students, or 1,000 students? He spoke about wanting density. I find it hard, and I am certain you find it difficult, to put much weight on what an individual says after they say, "I'm here to represent my friends." Certainly, these are grown men, not little boys, who could come forth and speak for themselves. I sold real estate for over 15 years. I can tell you with no hesitation from my years of experience that an enormous number of vacant homes and rentals never made the price of homes escalate. It's like a sliding scale. People who have financial hardship from not being able to rent or sell their properties lose the ability to purchase essential goods such as food, drugs, and clothing. The student spoke of want. The mother spoke of need. I implore you to listen to a family facing losing their home. That is the true need from a tax-paying resident. We are not a third world country, and we cannot let this happen to residents who pay taxes in this town. Empty houses and rentals create the need for an increase in social services. It does not foster a thriving community. Families who had once been proud of making it on their own are forced to go to other sources. After moving to Lakewood, I took a job in Head Start. In fact, Manash Miller's daughter, Sally, was one of my students. In another class, I met a homeless family after the child was in the class for half a year. A father that stood tall and erect suddenly was bent over and looked at the ground when he came in to pick up his daughter. A little girl who was vibrant, active, played with the kids, suddenly cringed when you went to touch her. She slept every night in a different home because of all the siblings they had to divide up. Her clothes were not particularly clean. She stopped playing with children. The only thing she participated in was the breakfast because she was hungry. We cannot let this continue. Close your eyes and imagine your family in that position. Appalling, isn't it? This may sound like an emotional plea, but realize it is now happening in our town. I know that it is not this board's intention to aid in turning Lakewood into a welfare city. Please think with your hearts and minds and make a right decision for the many existing Lakewood taxpayers and families, and not the small number of those who gain financially at the expense of others. Thank you so much for your time.
Connie Fossa,
You can pick up the mic.
like so. Okay, thank you.
Your address, ma'am?
86 Rosewood Drive, Lakewood, New Jersey. F is Connie, C-O-N-N-I-E. Fossa, F as in Frank, O-S as in Sam, S as in Sam, A.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony that you give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And I've made this announcement on other nights just because it's customary and the statute talks about these hearings as hearings. I don't know whether it's essential to be placed under oath, but I'm doing it, that's what the custom is. So if anyone refuses to be placed under oath, just let me know, and you don't have to be placed under oath.
I'm fine.
So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm fine. I've been a resident of Lakewood for 44 years. On several occasions, we decided to sell our home and move to another area of Ocean County. Most times, when we looked for other homes, we were more happier here in Lakewood than other places. Eventually, we decided to expand upon that home so that we'd have enough room for our family. When it came time and retirement approached, we started looking at retirement villages in this area. That included Toms River, Manchester, and other places. Again, we had watched fairways being developed. We were very impressed by the way they took care of the landscaping and they cared about the environment. And we also knew from various organizations we belonged to of people who lived there who had like interests. We moved to the fairways 3 years ago. We are very happy in the home. It's the right home for us at this point in our lives. My concern in speaking tonight is to reinstate the R40B ordinance. That was thrown out, and I'm embarrassed to say because this government did not notify all the correct people in making sure that everybody was notified of the changes in the ordinance and the zoning. The zoning was worked on very hard and was in keeping with your vision statements for your master plans. Things that say encourage growth and development in appropriate locations and consistent with established land uses. Encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. Well, we looked at all those things before we moved to the fairways, and we were very happy with some of the plans. And we've always lived in the southern part of Lakewood, and we found that they were keeping those plans pretty closely where we lived. Establishing schools as a conditional use is another good recommendation, and I'm hoping that these panels will look at them more closely and decide to instate them. Preserving ocean, open spaces, farmland, natural beauty, and critical environmental areas was one of the strategies. One of the more with plans of 1,800 homes in the, or housing units, I should say, not particularly grown buildings, in the golf course doesn't go with some of your strategies. A school of 10,000 square feet and 7,000 square foot gym adjacent to a senior community is not a good land strategy or use. The children there, and in many schools, are not easily controlled when they're out of school. We've seen them walking around, we've seen them smoking in the woods, there have been fires that have started, there's extra noise. There are other places where, in Lakewood, where they might be able to have this school grow appropriately. Since I'm 4 minutes, I thank you very much.
My name is Gedalia Weinrib.
Spell your name and
My first name is Gedalia. The last name is Weinrib, Weinrib. My address is 211
where from.
I'm sorry, can I ask you what your address was?
211 North Drive in Hartstone.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony that the board for the district will give?
I do.
Thank you.
I live right near Hartstone Park. It's a beautiful area. My kids get to play in the park, and it's perfect. I've heard that they want to add about 100 houses. It would just add so many houses to the community. I don't know where it would kind of ruin the park. It would just ruin everything. It would ruin the quality of life that we have in the area. I understand across in Massachusetts. Everything's staying.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we talk about the area adjacent to Hartstone Park, and you said we're not going to hold it? We're not changing. You were here last night, so.
Okay.
But yeah, we talked about that last night.
Okay, and the area across in Massachusetts, I know that they wanted to add so many cars. And right now, if you drive in Massachusetts at any given time of the day, it's full, it's packed. The cars are backed up all the way up Massachusetts. Adding more areas, adding more cars to the area, the traffic is going to become impossible. Just going about the daily living, just trying to have a daily quality of life is going to be ruined by adding so many cars. Please, as you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've already testified. How do you already?
Am I allowed to testify
Do you have
again?
something to?
Yes, I do. I had a question and it wasn't answered yesterday.
Just one minute, 4 minutes, please. Did you want to identify yourself?
Pardon?
Could you identify yourself for the record?
My name is Noreen Gill, 192 Coventry Drive, Lakewood, New Jersey.
You're still on the road.
Thank you.
I know who you are, just for the record. You don't have to identify.
I asked a question about the map. Tina, no one ever answered it. Do you have an updated map to go by for this master plan and the...
I explained, the governing body has the...
Well, how is he doing it?
Go ahead.
There was a discussion later on in the evening about maps. Our maps are up to date. We had some changes last night that were discussed. But I think you had some questions or comments about certain mapping being very old, and
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what maps you had in your hand and referred to.
One's
I think
a
that was
Roman
tax
down.
maps. And tax maps, some do go way back, but they're updated on an annual basis. I'm assuming that's
The
the
current, information is current on it.
Yeah,
When you go, it
current
says,
and brought up to date.
Lori, after the public comment, firstly, it's nice to see you after that.
Oh, thank you.
And after the public comment period, we were looking for you, and that was one of the questions that I asked of the planner, and he gave us the same answer last night. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, because
Oh, it's okay.
I really couldn't sit any longer.
It's nice to
I
see
had
you.
problems,
It's nice to
yeah.
see you after that.
All right, I just questioned, and I couldn't find my notes yesterday because I wasn't sure I was coming. It depended on how I felt. But in October 26th, 2016, the Township Committee unanimously instructed the Master Plan Committee that no increased density be allowed for any zones in Lakewood change. Now, when I had my first organizational meeting, yes, this year, everyone, except for a few on there, had remarks, which is fine with me. They said how they felt about the density. Doing the round table, it was self-evident that the people that were sitting there didn't want to hear about doing away with density, okay? Mr. Langry said density is not a problem, we just need better roads. Adam Pfeiffer does not want to freeze on density. Moshe Glimmerman said county should expand County Line Road in Kennedy. The other thing that really upset me was Mr. Langry, as much as I know him, he's a wonderful human being, he wanted everybody to go around town and see where we could put density. And there are areas in here where we could put it, okay? He said he would like to have his children live in Lakewood. People want to live in Lakewood. My reply was, I would love to have my children live in Lakewood. My nearest child is up 90 miles away. The density has increased enormously, okay? Mayor Ackerman wrote a letter to the planning board saying no more density. Here we sit now, and we're overcrowded, the traffic is heavy. People on that subcommittee went in there with open minds, at least I did. I'm more than willing to go for density in certain areas, but I'm not willing to go from 3 requests. When I left this board, the subcommittee, I left because I had to have a cancer operation. When I left, there were 3 requests. Brian Flannery came up here yesterday with 17. Let me ask you this, TNM. Tell me what you feel is the right thing to do about our density. Do you feel the infrastructure should be better in place? Or are you actually taking that into consideration? The planning board will make the recommendations and it will go to the township committee for a vote. All you people that are sitting here tonight, when this happens and the vote's taken, the township committee has the last say. So if you really want to do something, you get half the other people in this town to show up at the township committee meeting, okay? Because there are other people in this town who want the same thing as we all do. But density is our problem, and I want you to figure it out.
Thank you.
James Campbell, and I did speak before, but I have something different to say. 6 Rosewood Court, Lakewood. And I do affirm, Mr. Jackson.
Do you want to take additional testimony?
Okay.
I'll be short.
Be short and do testimony.
Okay.
You're still under oath, please proceed.
Thank you. I think if this master plan does not accept the fact that Lakewood is already overdeveloped, and much too dense, and the infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, water, sewage, will not support the quality of life for people who live here now. If that's the case, and if they believe that Eagle Ridge, the golf course, is a residential area, or could be, on top of a landfill, on top of wetlands, on top of tree-safe areas, where groundwater supports water running off down into Tom's River and into the Tom's River itself, not just the town. If that's the case, take the plan, put it in the dumpster somewhere, please. Do not accept this report.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, legal comments. You spoke every meeting, no?
Gotta keep my streak going. I'll be quick. Frederick Robinson, R-O-B-I-S-O-N. I acknowledge that I am still under oath. And I'm going to focus on different topics tonight. I don't think I exactly endeared myself to this good, hardworking board when I suggested that the delivery of a draft master plan is about halfway through the process, and that it typically takes about 18 months to get to a full, complete, comprehensive, tight, irrefutable master plan. I think we have to look at the master plan as a Rubik's Cube. I know that there's been hundreds of hours of work done. I can absolutely understand why the board in general, and particularly Mr. Flansbaum, who's worked tirelessly, is anxious to hear that gavel go down. But I would suggest to you, let's not have that gavel go down until we have a true and complete plan. I will offer just a few examples, and I could offer more, but we don't want to be here till 1 a.m. Article 3 of Chapter 28 of the Michigan Land Use Law describes what is required to be in a master plan. And there are several elements defined in that section of the law that are not addressed in any manner, shape, or form in this report. And I would suggest they need to be. For example, one element that is extremely important is the economic plan element, and another is the educational facilities plan element. We know that Lakewood is an education destination. It is part of the character and nature of this town. It needs to be addressed thoroughly in a master plan. There are several others that I would offer to you. And it goes to the comment made by the good member of the board. One of the strategic comments is to continue to support the development of private schools. I don't know that anyone objects to that, but then you go look at for the report, and there's no element suggesting how that's to be done or what constraints are to be placed so that it is done effectively and properly. Another part of the report speaks through public, one of the conservation strategic statements is to, through private and public endeavors, preserve environmentally sensitive areas. Again, you go to the detail, and there's no follow-up. There's no follow-up. One very small but important point that consumed enormous amounts of time the other night, Cross Street is not even listed as a street with high traffic volume. And yes, the county boards do look at those things when they make their decisions about the priorities of county spending. And if this town is not saying traffic volume is high on a particular street, the county is going to come back and say, and why are we going to spend money fixing that particular street? I also have a concern that the whole concept of the Schedule A lands has not been fully explained. I read through it a couple times, and I know there's been good work done by T&M, but I think that section needs to be clarified. It could be read that publicly owned lands can be used by a private for-profit developer to meet open space requirements. And my rhetorical question, I understand this is a comment period, Mr. Jackson, is that why are we allowing, if my interpretation is correct, why are we allowing in a master plan public lands that we all own collectively to be used to the benefit of a for-profit developer? Again, It's a, 30 seconds. It's a good draft, a lot of work. Thank you, Justin, for your work. I understand you actually see that gavel go down. Let's take the time, let us get right. My original comment, which I will conclude with tonight, is that I think the appropriate course of action is to have a draft review committee to fix all of these things and make it nice and tight and get that Rubik's Cube looking the way it should look. Thank you very much.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Grunberger is arrived.
Please state your name for the record.
Norman Shea, S-H-A-Y-E. 20.
Right hand, you swear affirm testimony will give before the floor with the truth, all truth, and nothing.
I do.
Please give your address.
26 Winding River Road, Lakewood, New Jersey. 10 years ago, I sat in this room when we were doing the previous master plan.
Norman, talking to
Oh.
my...
10 years ago, I sat in this room when we were going through the previous master plan. I assume that the master plan we're talking about is not in effect right now. It's being worked on. So we're relying on the old master plan. Now, that master plan, was that master plan approved in its entirety by the planning, by the, I guess, the council, the board, or the people who have to approve it? In other words, what do I use if I have a piece of land that I want to develop? I want to go and look at what are the restrictions and the zoning restrictions on that piece of land. What document do I use? Do I use the last master plan? And the last master plan might not have been approved in its entirety. If it hasn't, then I have to go back to the previous one. What's the process that I would go through to find that out?
We cannot give you advice on that.
Well, okay, let me ask a different question.
Complicated question.
Okay, let me ask a different, question
There's
then.
state, there's federal, there's DEP regulations. You have to go see a land use attorney or civil engineer. I can't tell you from this dais where to look before you want to develop your property.
Okay.
It's just not the province of the planning board to give out legal advice on how to develop.
The last master plan, was it approved by the town council? In its entirety or parts?
Sir, this cannot be used as a interrogation of the planning board. We can't do that. You can make comments regarding the master plan. We can't, and this isn't a question and answer forum.
Okay. Let me make a suggestion then. Driving here tonight took me an hour and 15 minutes. I hit gridlock on 3 streets. Now, the gridlock was, I was trying to make a left, but there was no room because the left turn was backed up. Then the light changed, and the people across from me, they made the left turn and filled it up. We took 3 lights to make 1 car through the intersection. That happened 3 times. We're getting to the point where people will not be able to go out of their house to buy food because it's too difficult to get to the store. They'll have to be planning late night runs to the food store. We all know that this is a problem. Could you put in the master plan that we're going to stop building until the infrastructure is improved? See, it sounds like we're doing the opposite. Let's increase the zoning, and therefore we'll improve after that the infrastructure. Let's do it the other way. Is that a possible, is that reasonable, or is that a legal question also?
That's a rhetorical question. We'll take it like that.
Okay. I noticed another thing. I was driving down Pine Street towards Route 9, and I noticed on the right side there, it looks like there's several hundred homes being built. Some are in the planning stage and some are already built. Each one of those, they're attached. They're attached in a group of about 8 homes. I noticed next to each unit, there were 3 air conditioners. Therefore, there are 3 units in each one of those buildings that are attached. A basement, a first and second floor, and an attic. I also noticed that there was no garages on any of these, no access for parking. If you add up all those additional cars that are going to be put on the road, wouldn't you think that a reasonable planning board would say there's a reasonable amount of parking on the street and on the property? Why do you permit houses to go in where it's obvious that the cars are going to have to park on the street. Okay, that's my comment.
Good evening. Good evening, gentlemen. Moshe Ingber.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to explain the process once again, and I apologize if it comes across as flippant or unresponsive. The board cannot field questions of a general nature or even of a specific nature. Someone asks, where do we look for development regulations? It's a very complicated, fact-specific thing. And that's not what this process is for. This process is to make comment about the proposed legislation. So we can't give specific answers. It's just not appropriate to do that. That's not what this forum is for. So when I say that we can't answer those questions, I hope it doesn't come across that we're being non-responsive. It's just we're being responsible and fulfilling what the mission of these particular hearings are. So, and also, an individual planning board member can't give you an opinion on behalf of the planning board. It's a deliberative process. The board only has a collective decision after it deliberates and makes a motion. So, if you hear a comment from one member, people will come up and say, well, the board told me this, or the town meeting said that, based on what one board member said during the hearing. The case law is very clear. Comments made by board members aren't even the position of the board. So that's why we're very cautious in what questions we can answer, what is our jurisdiction, etc. So please limit your comments. I think it's fair to ask a rhetorical question. If you say, is this enough growth or is this not enough growth? That's a rhetorical question, and that's for the board to consider. But I'm very sorry, but we cannot answer specific questions of an individual nature, or really even of a general nature. I'm sorry, sir, I interrupted you. Raise your hand. State your name, testimony will be before the board.
Moshe Ingber, I-N-G-B-E-R.
You swear affirm the testimony will be before the
Yes.
board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Ingber?
I-N-G-B-E-R.
Did you give your address?
28 Geffen Drive, G-E-F-E-N Drive.
Just speak into the mic.
Good evening, gentlemen. I live in the neighborhood. I was asked to come out on behalf of the community as well as myself. I live in White Oaks, and I believe that there's a piece of this new plan that's going to be changed to an R10, and it just doesn't fit. I don't want to get into the whole Lakewood scheme, but for this particular piece of property.
What piece of property where?
Where Burnside, I believe that came up. I actually have
Last night, that's one of the things when we brought up the board.
Okay, so you don't think that should be changed?
That's not part of the original.
Right, it was drafted, it was recommended originally, and then it was taken off, and last night, last minute, it was brought back up again. That's why a lot of the
Your
neighbors,
request is that the board go back to what the original...
to the original, yeah, and omit, what happens is there's, just to give a diagram, if I can give everybody a diagram, they'll kind of see. So basically, it's completely surrounded by R15, and this particular property, for some reason, we're not sure why, was slated to be changed. The entire neighborhood, is really not for it, and it kind of does not fit, and to make things worse, it's a really sensitive piece of property because there's wetlands going through it. And the topography is really bad. It goes down and up, and it's going to be a complicated site to develop, and then it's just going to, it doesn't seem like it's going to fit there. So respectfully asking if it could be omitted. It should stay R15, and, if anybody in the future wants to come and get a variance or whatever based on a plan, it's a complicated piece to develop, and the more leeway somebody is given, the more complicated, and, Okay, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for all your time. I know this is a rigorous and time-consuming process, and, hopefully everything ends well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to work with the board? Please take your name for the record.
Zachary Levin, 30 Eagle Ridge Circle, Lakewood.
Mr. Levin, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, upon hearing of the sale of Eagle Ridge Golf Course in January 2017,
We can't hear you.
Speak to the mic.
I began to do research concerning the impending bulldozing of the entire golf course for the sole purpose of building high-density housing with the elimination of all green space. I felt the need to become involved and find out what impact this destruction of 175 acres would have on magnificently landscaped Atlantic coastal wetlands, ponds, tree-shade areas, endangered and threatened wildlife, and multiple areas of native plant life that has become foraging and nesting habitats for a variety of migratory birds. In 2011, Eagle Ridge Golf Course entered into a stewardship assisted by the New Jersey Audubon Society and in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The purpose was to help restore natural wildlife communities that will create an important habitat for migratory birds. Over 600 native trees and shrubs were planted in several wetland pockets on the site, as well as on slopes on open water impoundments. These native plants provide suitable forage and cover habitat for migratory birds and other wildlife, and will help in soil erosion and sediment control of the Eagle Ridge Golf Course. A review by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and U.S. and Fish and Wildlife Service biologists confirmed that there are endangered and threatened species living within Eagle Ridge, such as the northern pine snake, the state-threatened red-headed woodpecker, and the northern long-eared bat. I feel the total destruction of this precious land that is home to myriad species of protected wildlife and plant life is totally unacceptable. Please consider what a disaster to the local environment and the displacement and inevitable death to so much of the natural habitat that would occur if the building of housing on Eagle Ridge Golf Course is allowed to go forward. Thank you.
Moshe Edeltak, Edeltuch.
And please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Sorry? 839 Hartstone Drive. I want to thank the board for the confirmation that the park area will remain R12, and I just wanted to state the concern of the Hartstone neighborhood that the corner of Cross and Massachusetts should remain single-family homes. Thank you.
My name is David Englander. I live at 1004 Princewood Avenue.
I think you're going to have to spell that for our court report.
You don't know how to spell Princewood? Or my name? Oh, my name is Englander, Englander.
And your last name?
My last name is Englander, Englander.
First name is David.
Thank you.
David. Thank you.
Sir, please raise your hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm here today. I'm speaking on behalf of many, many of my neighbors. I live in the Hearthstone development, and many people, if not most people, that live in this development either work or study in other parts of town. The commute every morning and every afternoon, back and forth, is one that's becoming increasingly more difficult as far as time. A big part of this problem is exacerbated by the density that keeps on increasing. The problem exists already. To make the problem worse is a is a terrible injustice to many people who live in that part of town. I believe that many of the members of these committees, although they do a very good job in trying to do what the town needs, the way things are going, it seems that our part of town is not being represented adequately in these boards and committees. I very much want to thank this committee for doing a great job and a lot of hard work in trying to create the master plan. But I want to speak about specifically one area that you should take into consideration, and take into consideration the needs of the people who live on the south side of town and use the north side of town and find it very, very increasingly difficult to get there. There's not that much that we can do about it, but we can definitely do a lot to not make it worse than it is already. One of those things is there's right now in what you need to decide on is about the area of Massachusetts, the corner of Massachusetts and Prospect, as well as another area along Massachusetts. You should realize that many of the people who live on the south side of town have already written off Route 9 as an access road to get where they have to go. They use alternative routes, namely, they use Massachusetts, they use Cross, they use other streets which are somewhat more hospitable to people who need to get to the other side and don't have time to sit in traffic for hours every day. So I ask you to please take into consideration Massachusetts Avenue, which so far is still somewhat accessible, and allow us to still use that street as an alternate route to Route 9, and please do not change the zoning to get from, to go down from an R20 to an R7 or 8. It should definitely, you must take into consideration our needs and the need to have alternate traffic routes. Now, I want to reiterate, I want to make it very clear, we are not against growth, and we are not against finding housing for everyone in the community that needs housing, but it needs to be done responsibly, and as long as we are in this situation with the growth in town is exceeding the infrastructure, we need to take a little bit of a break in planning this and take all these needs into consideration. I thank you very much for taking this into consideration, and I hope that you will do what needs to be done, and more importantly, not do what needs to not be done.
Avi Solomon. I'm sorry, my name and my address, 172 Chateau Drive.
You swear or affirm testimony?
Affirm. I affirm. Sorry, I affirm.
I have to say what you're affirming to first. Do you swear to affirm the testimony that you give before this board?
I affirm.
Thank you.
So I understand correctly, I'm not allowed to ask questions to the board, or dialogue is just really commentary on the master plan, is that
If you
correct?
have questions about the details of the master plan, you can certainly ask those, but, as far as general legal advice, what you can do, why you did this a certain way, that's really not what we're for. If you have the planner and if you're going to assist you with questions you might have about particularities of the master.
So I have one comment and one question. My comment is very simple. The rabbis of the Talmud say, if you keep something short, sweet, and simple, it sometimes penetrates quicker. Any master plan that involves more development and more density is destroying Lakewood. And now my question is as follows. I've lived in Lakewood probably 10, 12 years since I came back from Israel. And one thing that's been increasingly clear over the course of years is no one wants more building. People have been screaming about it for years. You know, a lot of people, I'm a political science major in Rutgers, and one of the things that I found fascinating is more and more people feel disconnected from the government, and everyone says the government doesn't care. They accuse the government officials of being corrupt. I am not accusing government officials of being corrupt. Please do not understand my intentions. But that is what people say. They say that their votes are bought. They say that everyone's corrupt, and they don't care about the people. The point I want to really focus on is people really don't believe that government officials, whether it be on a town zoning board or on the township committee, people really don't believe that they care about them. Why is that? Why is that? Well, one thing I don't understand, and I think it explains why that is. If so many people are screaming, please stop building, you are destroying Lakewood. If so many people are screaming that, and no one's listening, how can we believe that we have a government that is representing the people?
My name is Rudolph DeCio. I live at 49 Skyline Drive and in Lakewood. And
Spell DeCio?
D-E-S-I-O.
DeCio, please raise your right hand. You swear to affirm the testimony you will give before this board will be true, followed within nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please proceed.
Okay. I'd like to just take a step back to yesterday, where the young lady was very much, she voiced her concern about the threatening of her investment in her home by the unabated high density. There are so many apartments unoccupied, and she feels that she cannot get a good tenants, etc. Okay? I'm just taking one step further. If I was a homeowner in that situation where she has the need of tenants and she can't get the value of her property in order to make her monthly real estate and bank loan, okay, I would be like her and become desperate. She can't get any tenants. She's got to meet her financial obligations. So what I would do is, if I was her, I would approach the government and see if I can get some sort of relief, such as Section 8, turning my investment into a Section 8 property where I get help from the government, I give the tenants a break, okay, and I can meet my mortgage payment. Now, there is inherently a lot of problems with that, because you can turn your neighborhoods, namely Lakewood, into a ghetto, okay? Because you have people that shouldn't be able to be there, but they gravitate to the place because of, let's say, education or something, but they can't afford it. By having a master plan that is controlled, and you monitor the, you don't do anything until you have proper people in the houses. You can, you just create an environment where it's just, the community is just falling apart. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anybody else please come forward? Please take your name for the record.
Abraham Gobioff, 830 Wenstrom Avenue.
Please spell your name.
G-O-B-I-O-F-F.
You swear to affirm the testimony you will give before this board will be true, followed within nothing but the truth.
I do.
You're a first-time commenter, right?
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. I reside in an area that's currently zoned, I reside in an area that's currently zoned R40, and if I understand correctly, it's drafted to be rezoned to R10.
What's your address?
It's 830 Winstrom. It's the street called Newport Avenue, which is off of Cross Street. If I can address the planner, I just wanted to know where the logic was in the R10, because currently, I sat in front of the zoning board a while back, and there was a developer trying to change the zoning from the R40 to R15 or whatever. I just wanted to give the board a brief glimpse of what Newport Avenue looks like. It's one street that goes off a cross street, one street in, one street out, one way in, one way out, and I'm not here, I know that things are going to change, and I'm not here to try and keep it at R40. I think R10 is a little drastic. I was trying to see if the board can try to get it at least to R15, so it can keep the ruralness of the neighborhood and try to ease the traffic, because right now the Newport Avenue street is just 18 feet wide. You can hardly get 2 cars side by side down that street, or 2 school buses, definitely not. But again, there are about 22 acres that are going to be developed just down that one street. There's Doria, Bellevue, and Newport. That's it. There's no other means of egress out of Newport Avenue. So by changing that to R10, I feel 22 acres, you can do the math, we're talking about a few hundred homes out of one way, just it leaves out one way to Cross Street. I just feel R15 would be a lot more beneficial to the entire neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Dov Lerman, D-O-V-L-E-R-M-A-N. I live on 272 Rachel Court, which is in the Hartstone neighborhood.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you give before the board
Yes.
for all who is not?
Yeah. First, I want to thank the board for everything you do, for all the things they do for the community and helping out the planning board. I also want to thank them, I heard, for the fact that they rezoned, that the park, they're leaving it as single-family houses. I just want to speak about the corner of Cross and Massachusetts because I live to the back over there. It right now happens to be, it's a very condensed block right now. There's a lot of traffic on there right now. I see there because I live right behind there, and I hear that they wanted to develop duplexes on there. I could see that would add a tremendous amount of traffic in that area. It's already so condensed, and it's affecting the quality of life of the people who live there already. And if they continue to make duplexes there, it would make it, the quality of life there would be tremendously decreased. So even though people are saying people need houses, no one wants to live in a place where there's no quality of life and there's no place to breathe, or a place for them to drive, or a place for them to walk. I know that where I live, there are people, let's say somebody who has a day job, who people like a plumber, sometimes they won't even want to come to my house because they say it will take too long, or even if they come, they'll charge a tremendous amount because the time that it takes for them to come to where I live. I just know that also there is a lot of accidents on that block. I live there. I see behind me on the corner of Cross in Massachusetts, there's a lot of accidents over the past 6 years that I've been living there. I've seen many times police cars with accidents there. So it would really be it would be terrible to make duplexes there, because it would add a tremendous density, which would cause a lot more accidents and, God forbid, cause loss of life. So please keep that at single houses. Thank you.
Yeshua Bernhack, Y-E-H-O-S-H-U-A, last name spelled B-I-R-N-H-A-C-K. 18 SD Circle.
You swear affirm testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth?
I affirm.
Do you have anything new?
Yes, I do. I spoke last night, I have something new, and that's why I'm here, and I respect that the board will let me speak again. We brought up last night a personal issue where I reside, which is SD Circle, which is the only properties in Lakewood that are still agriculturally zoned. I know at the end of the meeting, the board did speak about that, and I believe John, Justin, and Mr. Herzl all believe that it should be conforming with the neighborhood, Angela mentioned that there was no justification that she heard, and I'm not sure if she was here when I spoke, but I have many neighbors here now who feel the same, and I guess that I want to address that to the board so they understand where you come from. We all know that A1 was a holding zone in Lakewood, which obviously was there to hold the property until we see what's going on. We all are living in a residential area. We're looking to keep it residential. We don't want any duplexes in our area, but we do want it conforming to whatever exists around us. And I think it's a reasonable request. Justin mentioned last night that one of the issues were that there is a deed restriction. That's obviously not the jurisdiction, or we're not asking for this board whatsoever to lift that. That's obviously going to go to county. If they decide to do it, we gain. If they don't, obviously, it's not a benefit, but we're asking this board to consider what the neighborhood needs are. The neighborhood needs are to have families, friends for our children, enough people that we don't have an issue with our shul on the weekends, and respectfully ask the board to respect the request. Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Yosef Binder.
Please just spell your name.
Yosef, Y-O-S-E-F. Binder is B-I-N-D-E-R.
You swear affirm testimony to give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I affirm.
And your address?
14 Chardonnay Court.
Please speak into the mic. I can hear you.
I would just like to say that for the past 5 years or so, I've been a resident of South of the Lake, and I could testify that the zone in Lakewood that's the most impacted by the traffic in town is south of the lake. And it's imperative that the planning board and the master plan committee take this into account, that we can't afford to make greater density precisely in areas that are impacted where they are. Just the other day, it took me over a half hour to get from Cross Street to Yeshiva. That's unacceptable. And then in that area, if I have to do that at night, it takes me 5 minutes. Something that at night takes 5 minutes with traffic during busy hours takes over a half hour sometimes. You can't have high density in such an area. That's irresponsible to make higher density in such a place. It's reckless, and if people mention quality of life, I would like to emphasize public safety. On Cross Street, one of the areas that's there's a proposed higher density is Cross Street, and by Massachusetts, there's I believe an R7, 5, whatever. I don't know the technicalities, but I know it means duplexes and a lot of homes. Along Cross Street, I was driving today off Prospect Street to get onto Cross, and as far as the eye can see, it was backed up along Cross. And this is day in, day out. During busy hours, there's a lot of schools on the street. It's tremendous traffic on Cross Street. And it's precisely on Cross Street that you're proposing to make a greater density and build more and more duplexes. If an ambulance has to get by on Cross Street, it can't get through when it's backed up bumper to bumper. You can't get through. There's no shoulder.
We've had a lot of comments about density and traffic. Is there anything specific else that you have to add?
Yes, and I also want to mention, it's important that you hear from many people. It's not getting heard. And I want to say that, also the Hurston neighborhood, it's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Lakewood. And right now it's single-family homes. And I hear around the Hearthstone Park, you want to chop it all down and make it duplexes. This would destroy the character of the neighborhood, and it would also add a lot of more traffic because all that goes down Route 9. Now, I also want to mention that I live off Prospect Street, and there's probably upwards of 1,000 residents already there. And as per the master plan, I believe it says per 1,000 residents, you should have at least 7.5 acres of recreational space. And all these homes that are built these days, there's about 10 feet of backyard, no room to play in the backyard. And you have a park that has a slide and a swing, and once your kids graduate from the slide and the swing when they're 10 years old, there's nowhere for them to play. It's the duty of the master planning board to set aside recreational space so that when kids graduate the slide and the swing, they have somewhere to play. So please take this space that you have, instead of giving it for duplexes, make parks, especially on Prospect Street. They have no park there at all. They need space to play. Adults also need recreational space. Please do so. This would be the responsible thing to do, and it would actually give credibility to the board. Thank you.
State your name for the record.
Stephen Guerrero,
Web spelling,
Greher?
East August?
No.
No. This should be, what's your address?
94 Faraday Avenue.
You affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I affirm. I'm just here regarding, the few people before Mr. Bernack. I want to reiterate just what he was saying, that we have 15 houses and there's 30 acres, or maybe even more than 30 acres, and we have zoning of agriculture zoning. And I just wanted to reiterate, we'd like to have, like everybody else, just a residential zone, so we'll be... Esty Circle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to be heard? Please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Wayne Stewart.
Speak into the mic.
I'm speaking into the mic.
Okay.
My name is Wayne Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, 1145 Tiffany Lane.
You swear affirm the testimony you give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. I don't know what brought you to revise the master plan, probably a state statute, okay? I hear a lot of people talking about quality of life. I've lived in Lakewood Township for 30 years, and I've seen how you've developed it. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I've lived in Lakewood now for 30 years. I've seen how this town has developed. I noticed that nobody paid any attention to the previous master plan. I mean, you got housing jumping out of everywhere. You created the traffic problem by allowing the high-density housing. Now you're proposing more. I hear people complaining. They can't go east and west and north and south. I don't see where this master plan is going to help that situation at all. Now, I'm concerned about my quality of life. 30 years I spent here. I don't begrudge anybody anything. You put a shul in up on a corner. It's got 20 parking spaces. There's 100 cars parked in front of that every day, except Shabbos. No cars. You can't get in and out, and there's accidents. It used to be a residential neighborhood. Now it's split zoning. It's commercial and residential. Now, I'm living in a residential neighborhood. I'm talking about my quality of life. I go out onto Chestnut, which is a block away, 2 blocks away from Route 9. You can't get out there. Guess why? Traffic. You have high-density housing over on New Hampshire. There's no light there. You can't get out. You got a school directly across New Hampshire from Chestnut. There are accidents there all the time. It's a school. You got school buses turning across traffic, across northbound traffic, going south to get into that school. They get hit. The people get hit. There's no light. Nobody allows you to go in and out. Now, you're going to take and do what you're going to do. Cross Street is a disaster. You've got schools in the industrial. We had the highest, the largest industrial park in the state of New Jersey. And you've turned it into a schoolyard. You've turned it into housing. I don't know what you've got in mind, and you're going to do what you're going to do. It doesn't make any difference. Now, you're going to make a recommendation with this master plan. You're going to take it to the township committee. They're going to take and rubber stamp it, and the zoning board is going to take and change everything. Because that's what happened now. You got high-density housing because somebody went to the zoning board and said, oh shit, I'd like to take and put more houses here. You have substandard roads in the developments. They're lanes, they're not roads. Now, consider this, when you're taking and going through this. I don't know what your need for more development is. Apparently, it's there. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I did some research, and I just wanted to bring something to light.
Please be brief.
Very brief.
Just please state your name and spelling.
Isaac Goldsmith, Goldsmith.
We're still under affirmation.
After looking at it yesterday, obviously, thank you for keeping the Hearthstone Park R12, but regarding the Crossing Massachusetts Core, I looked back at a growth plan that was done in 2013 by a very prestigious firm of T&M, and they actually had a very smart growth plan for that corner. It included single family, a commercial, a park in the middle, everything a community would need in a separated, isolated area. And the recommendation now was to keep the 2013 Smart Growth Plan. It resembles absolutely nothing of what is in the 2013 Smart Growth Plan. I can hand them out if you want. It had a park, it had commercial, you could do shopping, so you didn't have to drive out, and it had single family. You took the entire thing and made the entire thing R75 and RMs, which there's nothing smart about this plan consistent with 2013. And on top of that, it says that even says very specifically it should have multi-uses and multi-zones. It is all duplexes. There's not one single family area in the entire triangle. There's RM, which could be multifamily, and there's R75, which is multifamily. There's zero single family proposed in the current ones. I don't see how that's smart. You yourselves did it on 2013. This was a beautiful plan. It has nothing like what it has today. I can go into details of what it says and why it doesn't consistent, but I will keep that short. I'm just making you aware of that. If you all want to review, I will hand out the 2013 Smart Growth Plan. And the last thing I just wanted to bring to light was I did a little research, and it's not illegal, but it may be a little ethical, but the person pushed for this zoning change was Mr. Flannery for his client. Mr. Flannery owns a piece of property in that area. I have the deed right here. So he should at least be, admitting that he has a personal interest in that property. Thank you.
Ma'am, please state your name for the record and your address.
Yes, my name is Mary Margaret Davis. I live at 23 Winding River Road. Yes, Davis.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Tonight, about 5:30 or so, I was a passenger in a car. We made a right turn on Cross Street out of the fairways and drove down Cross on our way here. I was sitting in the back seat of the car. Again, I want to emphasize I was not driving. I looked up out of the right passenger side to the school on Cross Street. Honestly, I couldn't believe what I saw. On a roof overhang, I saw 6 young men sitting on the roof overhang. I saw an accident waiting to happen. If this is a private school, we better look at the definition of supervision, scholarship, and general education in this town. I was alarmed for those children, young men. I was alarmed for the parents who weren't on site to see it, and I questioned where were the adults who are running that school. I have lived in Lakewood for 18 years. My husband and I moved here after searching and searching through every single brand new development. We chose the Fairways because of its beauty. Mr. Franbaum, I remember just a few weeks ago when you came to the Fairways and you complimented our development. You said, how beautiful. You don't even know there are 1,100 homes because the setback is so beautiful. you also continued to talk about the brand-new development on Cross Street. And you said it was before my time. Ladies, gentlemen, we don't have the time not to think forward. Long after we're gone, the remnants of what is approved by this town will remain. I want to see Lakewood, because it has been my home for 18 years, thrive. I want everyone to have a beautiful place to call home. It is your job to make that so. You can't say, well, this is only a temporary document. The master plan is the most important body of work that town will accomplish. You have the chance now. The town's not going to have that chance for another 10 years. I believe each one of you is up to the challenge. Don't let the people who are trying to influence you to make petty decisions. Think about the future. Think about what you can do. And I'll give you one more example. 18 years ago, when we moved here, believe it or not, I drove to Asbury Park every day in 1 hour. I used all of the back roads through Lakewood, hopped on 195 and further down. I did it. It wasn't a problem. I could get to work on time. What could I do now? Never, 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 never. We have to think about our roads. We have to think about the future. We have to think about blizzards. We have to make sure people are safe. And I hate to say this, but we better give thought to what happened in Texas and in Florida with Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. We better give serious thought to the drainage and the development going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please state your name for the record.
Bob Sweeney, 53 Ivy Hill Road, Lakewood.
Spell your last name.
S-P-E-E-D-Y. Like quick.
Do you swear a firm testimony to give before this board?
I do. Like so many in the room here, I've attended 3 of the 4 meetings that we've had here. I was also at the meeting at the Fairways where Justin kindly attended for us. It's been very interesting. I've heard young people as well as the senior group express their concerns, their frustrations, and ironically, one time we've all gotten together here and we seem to all be coming from the same place. We have the same concerns. We have the concerns of density, raising families in a safe place with good places to live, congestion, and they're all legitimate concerns. And I just think that when we keep getting up here and hearing statements like, it doesn't really do any good to come up and tell you folks how we feel because you're going to do exactly as you please. I don't like hearing that because I think you have an opportunity here to prove all of us wrong. You have the opportunity to make a huge difference in the future of Lakewood. I lived in Toms River for 31 years before coming to Lakewood. I never thought I would live in Lakewood, but I did because of the community that I saw there that we liked. And I had some confidence in people that planning ahead in smart development might make a difference. It hasn't so far, and I think this is the time that we need to do just that. I'm going to coin and use the word that Justin used when we were talking before, and that is smart development. We're not saying there shouldn't be any growth in Lakewood. We're saying it should be done smartly. I also want to make a comment that I think was made last Tuesday by Mr. Flannery, that golf courses are very poor use of property and land. I couldn't object more to that, not because I live near one, and not because I'm a great golfer or that I play golf every day. I'm none of those. I do live fairly close to it, but I'm not a great golfer, and I don't play it every day. But they are some of the most beautiful places in Lakewood. There happen to be 3 of them. I'm concerned that as we go forward, if we feel that we are in such a position that we have to take places of recreation that are available to every resident of Lakewood, then we must be pretty desperate if we're planning on building more homes, because they aren't the places to build homes. I foresee if you start letting that happen, that golf courses will disappear, parks will disappear, playgrounds will disappear, soccer fields will disappear, and I don't think any of us wants to see that. So I just challenge you, as I'm sure you feel that way now, that you do listen to us, that you do make a difference, and I feel confident that after this, and hopeful that you will do just that. Thank you.
Shlomo Klein. Block 430, lot something. That's how you advertised all your zone changes. No addresses, no who bought it, who owns it, it's just block and lot. So I'm dealing with it the same way. I moved in South...
For the record, what's your address?
What?
What's your address for the record?
Block 430, lot number 20. What? I just gave you my block and lot. Okay.
Klein, please raise your right hand. Have you testified yet?
Yes, I did.
You have something to say?
Yes.
Please state your address.
It's Chateau Drive something, as this one says, it's Chateau.
I bought a house in South Lakewood a couple of years ago when there was no traffic there. Actually, the traffic was on the north side. And I made a big mistake. I thought that even if it's going to increase traffic, the township will take care of the infrastructure. What I didn't realize, that I bought in the south side of Lakewood next to the seniors. And what I didn't know then is that Lakewood will do one day, they'll dump all the density and no infrastructure on the seniors, and therefore I'll have to suffer about it. I am sitting over here, it's really tonight, it was not yesterday, but I was observing tonight, public comment comes up, and when next to the developments of the Orthodox come up, yes, we won't change it, we will change it, we'll take care of it, and there's a response from the board, the vibe back when a public comment comes up. But when all these seniors come up, like they're dumb, like we're not answering anything, is like we don't exist. I just made this mistake, and I just want to mention this over here. I think it's wrong, but that's how my feeling is over here, and I made a big mistake about moving next to you guys. I'm sorry. One of the things that I want to mention that I think, I think it's just wrong. You have, somebody comes up over here, like Brian Fleming for a developer, and he gets all the time, he's even called up, giving this back and forth and zoning changes and giving this time and everything. And the public is not giving the same, you're just being cut off. I'm going to put it, you cannot ask questions, you cannot give comments, you're over here to give statements. I'm by the township committee, it's also, you give comments over there. And there is a vibe back. They're saying is, thank you very much, we'll look into it, you make the public feel good. But when somebody comes and makes a statement or a comment, and from the board, there's like nothing, no response, it just doesn't show that you're interested. It's just saying, it looks like the attorney is saying is, we have to accept comment, we'll let public comment, we'll try to limit it as much as possible. That's how I got my feeling today. I must say is, yesterday, again, the chairman is a special person, he respects the public, but he has to abide by his guidance of the attorney, and I'm getting this vibe today. I don't mean anything bad, I think he's great, but I just get a different vibe from yesterday. So, again, I'm just mentioning it, and it's not a legal thing, and I'm not asking a question, I'm not asking for a response either, I'm just saying my statement. The only thing that I have to say is like this, what I want to end is, that, and I'm mentioning what the attorney said, this master plan should not be as putting in certain buffers on somebody's private land. And there is something that I see that this whole master plan is geared to developers. Because from the whole Lakewood, there's only one property by Oak Street corridor they recommend vacating. You recommend vacating the street. And the township was dealing with it, and there's engineering report. And the same, I was asking, why aren't you putting in sidewalks over there that was not put in? Oh, that's not for the developers. Developers don't want sidewalks. I was asking, why is the light on Broadway and Route 9 not put in the master plan? Oh, that helps it goes against the developers, it helps the residents, we don't put it in. But when it comes to vacating streets, that helps the developers, and I asked Justin about it. He told me he doesn't understand my English. So I told him I'll speak to him in Yiddish. Doesn't understand Yiddish. Hebrew, silent language, whatever you want. He doesn't understand what I'm talking about. I know the 4 minutes is up, and I'm going to keep it to 4 minutes. I just have one question that I can't get the answer from this board, and I'll ask it from the professional because the attorney will not allow me to ask you guys the question. And to be honest with you is, I really feel that you don't have the answer to that. And the public for sure doesn't have the answer to this. And me, myself, as trying to grasp onto it, I don't understand it. Could the professionals explain how impact fees will improve the traffic flow in Lakewood, on Route 9, on Cross Street, and all these sections that you're increasing density? Could somebody explain it, how this impact fees is going to, how it's going to help the circulation of traffic in that side of town?
Mr. Klein, I'm not going to disappoint you. We'll treat that as a rhetorical question. Thank you.
You saw? Did you just see what happened? Thank you. Hold on.
Sir, please spell your last name.
Pastal. I live on,
Testimony will give before this board be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. 129 Skyline Drive. Nick. What happened to, where's Justin? I'd just like to say briefly, if we don't build on the golf course, we don't have to worry about traffic that much. I would like to say a few words and make some observations about our beloved Eagle Ridge Golf Course. It can be enjoyed by everyone, golfers and non-golfers alike. We have golf outings, golf tournaments, fundraisers, men's and ladies' leagues. We have an excellent youth program where children can take lessons and play golf after school. This is a segue, forgive me. About a month ago, I went to the driving range to hit some golf balls. The driving range was fully occupied with young boys from our Jewish community. It became obvious that they had no idea how to hit a golf ball. They kept missing the ball and were getting frustrated. Finally, I offered my help. I showed them the proper grip, demonstrated the backswing and the follow-through. Almost right away, I saw an improvement in their ball striking. I'm sorry, let me backtrack. It was a fun day for them. They were polite, called me sir, and asked me for my help. I asked them when they would be coming back because I wanted to give them my golf instruction books. They did not know. They thanked me for my help. I wished them good luck, and we said goodbye. My request to the board is, don't let them take the golf course away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please state your name.
Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey. I have testified. I understand I'm still under oath.
You want to say your address?
257 East Pleasant Grove Road, Jackson, New Jersey. I have some clarifications to make. Mr. Klein always talks about I get more time, but, and people ask why aren't more people that are in favor of growth, why don't they come? And through all the meetings, we've seen them come. And they get booed and they get intimidated, so they don't come back. I also saw Mr. Klein had a warm-up show before the meeting started, at which time he said that I was hired just to put on a show that you guys could turn something down and you guys would look good. That's what Mr. Klein does. He likes to make comments that have no basis in fact. The 20 people that I've written letters for, the 20 people that I wrote letters for are property owners in the town, and they certainly have a right to ask for their property to be zoned the way they think it's appropriate. I heard tonight that I'm being disparaged because I own property in town, which is something I said on the record a couple days ago. I'm a property owner in town. Property owners in town have a right to talk about the way they think property should be zoned, just like most everybody else that got up as a property owner in town, and they talked about their area as well as any other area they were interested in. So the first thing I'd like to clear up is the impact fees. They said last night there are no impact fees, there aren't going to be any, and they're going to go for school buses. Well, that's not the case. The impact fee ordinance was approved. It gets put into developers agreements with the town. Stan indicated their office is working on improving it. They said you don't know where the money goes. Stan can tell you that the impact fee ordinance has a list of what the improvements for, and that's what the money goes for. And it's not going to go for busing. It's not going to go for anything else. It's a designated fund for doing traffic improvements, and traffic improvements are what are needed to improve traffic congestion. The Hartstone Park came up last night after I spoke, and it keeps getting referred to as the Hartstone Park. Just so the board is aware, the Hartstone Park isn't going anywhere. The woods surrounding the park, the 2007 master plan had a recommendation that it be R7.5, no duplexes. It was recognized in 2007 it shouldn't be duplexes. The advisory committee passed along that recommendation, and it should have been clarified. It was never intended to be duplexes. The next question comes is what lot sizes they should be. And when I mentioned last time that a majority of the lots in the area are less than 10,000 square feet, I heard noise from the crowd from people who think they know what the lot sizes are. But I have the facts on the lot sizes, and I have a map that I'd like to hand out to the board. And I have a copy for Rob, and I have a copy for Mr. Klein, the way it's normally done.
Where's my copy? You go first.
It's an exhibit that was prepared, presented to the planning board many times. Anybody who's been around should have heard this and should have the same numbers. It shows that R12 area, and it highlights the existing development in Hartstone and in the Hartstone area. And there's a total of 240 lots. Highlighted in blue are all the ones that are over R12. The interpretation of that is all the ones that conform with the R12 zone are highlighted in blue. There's 25 of them.
Over 12, right here, my property.
The one on the corner, I thought that was the water tower.
Oh,
Okay,
no,
so-
no, but you didn't circle all these. These all have to be circled. Why aren't they being circled?
These aren't being circled because they're not in Hartstone.
This is considered back, but this is my
Well,
backyard.
these are, so one of the neighbors indicated it's 26 instead of 25 out of 240. And in orange, all the lots that are between 10,000 and 12,000 are highlighted, and that's 41 of them. So the map says that 28% are above the R10. So if the Hartstone, undeveloped area of Hartstone was developed as 10,000 minimum square foot with no duplexes, it would certainly be consistent with the area. And that would be my recommendation to the board. The next thing that comes up all the time is the corruption. And, well,
If the audience could refrain from yelling back there.
yeah, I don't think nobody yelled when Rob, who has an...
When this witness is finished, let's take a 5-minute recess at the corporate court and get a break. This is really taxing on them.
Right,
Have people all speaking at once.
the comment last night, and I wouldn't have to make comments at all if people didn't make comments that weren't factual. The comment last night was that I made a comment about corruption, and because there's no proof that there's no corruption, that means there is corruption, and that's just ridiculous. Welcome to America. You're innocent until proven guilty, and I don't like hearing the board and the township committee referred to as corrupt. It's wrong. The next issue I'd like to talk with, which didn't get talked about, is the Schedule A and the Schedule B areas on the master plan. And I would respectfully request that T&M would look at the Schedule A and Schedule B. My understanding is that areas that are not publicly owned and have public sewer would be in the Schedule B. And the Schedule A is for areas that are environmentally sensitive, they're out of the sewer service area, and would be in there. And I think there are some inconsistencies there, and if T&M could look at that before the final document is drafted. The next question that came up is why should we do anything before the infrastructure is improved? And the answer is very simple. And most people are talking about the cross street, the Eagle Ridge area, and you know what, we could just stop and wait and do nothing. And they all think that's a good solution, and it's a shame that they don't realize it's not. You know, when you have a medical problem, you go to a doctor, you get a professional opinion, and you get the right answer. If you just stop, I'll tell you, it's not going to be helpful. So any approval of Eagle Ridge requires DEP approval. Nothing's going to be built there till there's a DEP approval. The DEP, first of all, the tree save areas, the first application that the property owner submitted asked to transfer the tree save areas to another place. DEP said they're not doing that. So those trees in the tree save area, they're staying. They don't need to be shown on a master plan. There's a deed restriction, and they're staying. Every application that goes to the DEP has deed restricted areas for wetlands, for buffers. They're not shown on the master plan, and they're all staying. So those trees will be there, the beautiful areas will be there. Any areas that are needed for environmental habitat, we just heard there was going to be total destruction of the golf course if it's not preserved. Well, the way to preserve it would be for a municipal agency to buy it, like in Tom's River, where they have a Bailey golf course. Lakewood isn't about to spend taxpayer money to do that. It's a private piece of property, and it should be treated with fairly the same as every other private property. if nothing gets done prior to the board moving, schools and campuses are what will be built there, and the traffic will be horrendous. The way to handle it is the township can enter into a developer's agreement. You can have phased development. The DEP requires phased development, whereby traffic improvements need to be in place before the construction is done. And the master plan can recommend that. The township committee can implement that. Rob handed in some information last night, and he handed... If you look at the amount of time in all of these meetings that's dedicated to providing information to help the board make decisions on it versus the people that just get up and say, stop the development, I'm stuck in traffic. I have some things to hand out. Rob handed out. If you want me to just hand them to Ally and you guys can look at them another time, I can do that. But it's resolutions from the planning board with respect to the golf course. The representation was that it's together, it's lumped together, it can't be taken apart. And that's not the case. I have copies. I don't know if I'll just hand them to Ally or hand them out, whichever you'd prefer.
Can I just make a comment to the board? I feel like sometimes I'm at the, like at a planning board hearing where the golf course has like made an application, or we're hearing like a development application. Does anybody else feel like that sometimes?
So he gets time. So he gets time, and the members of the public don't.
The members of the board, they didn't stop anybody today.
You did. You said 4 minutes is up. And I'm out of order. And I'm standing over here just to get my copy.
Jack, you need 5 minutes? Okay. I suggest everybody stay at the dais, one of you can mention, not take a few minutes.
You didn't say that.
I did.
I have no commitment from you guys. You said 7,500.
I said that was the original request. Absolutely said 10,000 square foot, single family, no.
No, it's the last night. Last night?
Tonight.
What was last
Listening?
night? What did you say last night?
Last night, I explained to them
the tree savers are there, there's a revised plan.
There is a revised plan. They submitted a revised plan with the tree save areas there for 500 some units.
Why isn't it available for public inspection? It's not.
They made it, submitted a revised plan. You submitted, was supposed to submit it to the town.
Most of the comments are based upon the original plan, which showed building after building after building.
All the tree save areas are there, those houses are in between the trees. 500 units, and the number gets smaller every time they look at, well, you gotta save some for red-headed woodpecker, which we didn't find. You gotta save some for snake.
That's not my area, but when you got legitimate experts in the Conservation Foundation saying they exist. Emil DeVito's got a huge reputation. It's hard to...
What are we talking about?
New Jersey Conservation Foundation guys. All I'm saying is they're experts in it. They're the ones that are saying.
And the developer paid Trident Environmental, not Trident, Voice Environmental, to sit out there and look for the woodpecker, call for the woodpecker, and they found lots of flickers, lots of non-endangered species. But they're still requiring saving an area of woodpecker that wasn't seen.
Back to the basic point. If there's a revised plan.
Send myself an email now to find out why that didn't happen. I'm not doing plantings. I'm not GDMS. But
you're close to him. Your first cousin to him. We had the same issue with the original application. The application that was on file was originally only a partial application. And as you well know, one of the big issues is drainage.
I'm going to check with the developer, and if he says it's okay, and I don't know why he wouldn't, I just give you a plan that was submitted. I should be able to see it.
And understand it's a two-part thing. They have to give it, and then the township has to make it available.
Yes.
All I'm saying is it's not available.
And I'm not the kind of guy that will say you should have to go get there and go maybe my client. I would say it's at the township, you can look at it, cancel copy, no sense there, hassle. But I can't, that's not my decision. I gave myself an email in the morning, I'll ask that. I don't know that I have your phone number.
Let me give it to you. Or email, which would you rather have?
Email's good.
It's Rob Robinson, and you know how to spell my last name?
I'm not sure.
R-O-B-I-N.
I was going for an email. Why don't I go to my notes? And I'll just add it to the notes, and then tomorrow I'm not as good with these as my...
You're far better than I am if you even go to notes. Want me to write it down on a piece of paper?
Here, I got it right now.
All right. R-O-B-I-S-O-N. 78.
Is that the email? Rob,
run it all together.
Run it all together. 78.
At Verizon.net.
That's easy. You got a space in there, but I'll get rid of it.
Yeah. If you leave a space in there, I'll never get it.
No, you would get it, because what would happen is I would send it, if you come back, I would say, what did I do wrong? Kids get it right. I'm not that good. I never wanted to have this. It's funny, you used to be able to like go somewhere, do something. When I go to church, I take it off. My wife brings me to church, and I'm like, well, I put it on silent. I put something extra. When you come out of church, the kids are worse. Kids have two of them.
And kids are now going to buy a $1,000 iPhone. Did you see that yesterday?
Yep.
I think you and I have to agree to disagree about the interpretation of that subdivision plan.
That's my phone number. And there's all this is what it's very frustrating. Believe me, it's frustrating for me.
Well, I handed out the resolutions because Rob...
Please be quiet, we need to be back in session.
Very close to 1 minute. I can do it probably in as much time as Mr. Klein argues about how much time he's going to spend. So I handed out the resolutions to show my opinion being different than Rob's, in that it specifically says in the resolution of 12/17/96, the applicant is seeking major subdivision approval to approve a golf course. He's also seeking site plan approval to construct a golf course. If you go on to the other ones, it says a separate entity will own the golf course. That's the reason for the subdivision line. And it also says, for clarification, there were 3 separate applications, and a presentation was made on all 3 of them together. So it's my opinion and my representation that it was 3 separate applications. Rob asks for the R40B ordinance. I think that would be spot zoning, and it would be contrary to other provisions in the proposed master plan that say schools should be encouraged and allowed in every zone. He wants the golf courses to be open space, and they're owned by a private entity, and they shouldn't be. With respect to the DEP will require any approvals. If it doesn't get approved by the DEP, if it doesn't get approved by the town, it doesn't get built. So my interpretation is that the zoning that's on the plan is appropriate, and the master plan with respect to that is appropriate.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the public would like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Monica Berger,
Just spell your name.
Monica, Berger, Berger. I live at 38 Blue Jay Way.
Will be affirmed by the attorney.
Affirm the testimony will give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I just want to let you all know, I was not planning to speak tonight, but because Mr. Flannery spoke, I'd like to speak my piece. Good evening, board members. I'm here yet again to bring notice tonight about what happened last night. Yesterday, we all agreed that we can't increase the density on the property behind Pine Boulevard, being that it's situated between 2 high-densed areas, that of Route 9 and the future high density of the Triangle. We all agreed that increasing its density would not only be a lack of planning, but a direct plan to fail. We, the neighbors, very much appreciate that understanding. Yet, by being courteous in saying that we do not oppose housing in general, and we do not oppose that there should be housing in this property located behind Pine Boulevard and Massachusetts, and even to the extent of a possible variance to put in a few more homes, Mr. Flannery took that right away and jumped in that it should be 8,000 square feet. And even saying that all the lots in the neighborhood are at 8,000 square feet. When we told him it wasn't, he quickly changed it to say that 75% of them are. When we again contradicted him, he then changed it again to say that 75% are at 10,000 or less. 3 different numbers in less than 60 seconds. That's incredible. It's a lie. It simply isn't true. So now, I realize something. I realize that if we are nice and courteous and we try to give a finger, they end up taking a hand. We as neighbors are very strong and set. This must stay the same zoning that it is in R12. It must stay written as an R12 exactly, with no changes whatsoever, so that we don't end up doing what you all agreed we shouldn't, and that is to take away the last breathing room in this area. This must stay in R12. You can be sure that if this stays in R12 in the master plan, and a later time someone comes requesting a variance that is reasonable, the neighbors will not oppose, as long as it stays within the same setting. However, to go out and put it into the master plan, already today, this would be a smaller zoning than R12 with a restriction for single-family homes. It is just as good as giving it an R75 today. There is no distinction between the two. It is exactly what is going to happen. So in order for this to stay the way it is supposed to be, it has to stay in R12 zoning, with nothing changed to its existing zoning. And again, after the master plan is drawn and someone comes before the board requesting a variance that is reasonable, then at that time, just like any other variance, it will be brought before the board. But in the master plan, it must stay exactly the way it was. No change whatsoever. R12 it is, and R12 it should stay. I'd also like to point out something, that Mr. Flannery brought a map, and he very nicely forgot to include my lot, which is for sure over 12,000 square feet. I know what I have. And he also forgot to mention the other 5 houses over there that are also above 12,000 square feet. Again, I don't know where your numbers come from. Thank you.
I didn't finish my 4 minutes, and it's specifically regarding Brian's 8,000, I know, I didn't use 4 minutes.
Sir, the chairman is not recognizing you. Please stand down.
I didn't use 4 minutes, and I want specifically with
Please
Brian's.
sit down, sir.
Okay, anybody who did not speak and would like to speak, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Akiva Pollock,
Just spell your name.
Spell your name, please.
A-K-I-V-A. Pollock is P-O-L-L-A-K. My address is 970 Morris Avenue, Lakewood, New Jersey.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, I live in the area we're discussing on Morris Avenue. It's right next to Hearthstone, and it's my backyard is facing Massachusetts. The streets, the area, the neighborhood, the safety cannot handle excess amount of houses. So the minimum amount of houses that we're going to put there is just basically safety issue, and also the time and the convenience of the people in the neighborhood. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Zalman Sorotzkin.
Please spell Sorotzkin.
S-O-R-O-T-Z-K-I-N.
You have something to do?
100, yeah, sure. 100 Stratford Place, Lakewood, New Jersey.
He's previously testified?
He testified yesterday.
Recognize him?
He has something to do, he didn't say yesterday.
Yeah.
He's on the road. Please proceed.
I'm sorry?
Please proceed.
Okay. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. I just want to bring up one emergency before we start. There are a lot of seniors here, and things have been brought up that even a second delay for a senior or anybody is, a question of life or death. I do see that on the defibrillator here, there's wires hanging. There is objects that could delay in case of any emergency, and I strongly object that in the name of the seniors. Let me just state a few things over here. Number one, it was stated yesterday, excuse me? Thank you. Okay. It was stated yesterday,
Sir, please refrain. Please continue.
Yeah. It was stated yesterday a couple of facts that are untrue, and I felt I have to come back to reaffirm those. Number one, it was stated when I brought up a very good point that this town has many people. We have 100,000 residents, and if you look around, courtesy to the senior citizens, not too many other people are here. Mr. Klein wanted to state is because we don't have social media. Now, that alone is a laughter, because first of all, we have been harassed by robocalls, and we do have phones. We all know about it. June 6th, as I stated, we came out, we voted them down. So obviously, most people in town do not feel that this is an issue and to come object this issue. That's number one. Number two, being here yesterday, I felt very downgraded to have somebody come up because I don't agree with his opinion and to call me red-headed or to call somebody else a chicken brain. These things, shame on you. I'm sorry to say this is not a mental institution.
There has to be law and order. There's no two, many times he has said that, for example, when there's a break, we should not approach the public members and speak to them. Then yesterday, I see Mr. Klein speaking to the public members. Mr. Klein could go over his 4 minutes. He is not an elected official over here. We did not elect him. I think we will have to take legal action. It's a nuisance to the public. He cannot come here every night. People come, they have things in their agenda. He just comes one after another, and that's totally not right. Now, let me state very simply. This town has a school called BMG, that is Besmedish Gevora. For you, I just want to make sure you got that. We have thousands of students. We're at the largest school here in the USA. Now, this school is meant for students that are pre-marriage. We start off pre-marriage, and then we learn here after we get married. That's where we like to learn. We send our kids to the local schools in the area. Now, when we start off, we rent apartments. Now, when we get older, we are already acquainted to this area. We want to stay steady fast in this area. Now,
Sir, can you please, how does this tie into the master plan?
oh, very simply. Sure, I will let you know, because we need housing. Now, there is an issue with traffic that has to be dealt with, very important. But we do need housing, and just to stump the growth is a terrible idea. Now, as you see, if you look, there's two type of areas in Lakewood. For example, look at Raintree, or look at areas that are not high density. They have a very hard time selling. In the high density areas, people are coming. There's a reason why people want to build here, because obviously there's a market to buy. This is the way we enjoy this is the way we want to be part of the group of guys, and I think we have to be brought into consideration. Just to get up and defaminize or say this is corrupt, there's Russia, that's ridiculous. This is a township, we have people here, and we have been voted in. Trump's president, we have been voted in, we want growth, we don't want to stump the growth. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Please state your name on record.
Rivka Richmond.
Please state your name on record. Please be quiet.
Rivka Richmond.
Speak to the mic.
Rivka Richmond.
Spell your last name.
Richman.
Your address.
750 Forest Avenue.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
The truth.
Please proceed.
Okay, I grew up here in Lakewood before the builders took our town away. We grew up, town was nice. There were not too many. I grew up here in Lakewood before the builders took our town away. We had not too many people per block. We had just the right amount. Everybody lived comfortably, and then as in the past, I don't know what it is, whatever happened, the zoning change, the traffic, the quality of life, people live one on top of the other, there's no lack of privacy, and as opposed to what the previous person stated, I don't think people are not coming here because they are pro. I think everybody's against. I think people are unaware. I myself was unaware. I know I don't have social media, and I don't. Yes, maybe I did get a message, but I don't always listen. I think I'm speaking for many, many masses of people like myself who are very opposed to this master plan. We want Lakewood the way it was when I was growing up, and we're very against. And I don't believe builders, do any of you live in townhouses? Do any of you live in duplexes? No, you don't live in townhouses, you don't live in duplexes, and you never will. You're going to still live in your huge, whatever you're going to live in with, you're going to have your big front lawns and back lawns. None of you live in townhouses, so you have no right to talk. You're here on a financial basis and not for the quality of life of anyone here. Thank you, everybody.
Please state your name on record.
Moshe Krohn.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moshekrohn.
What's your address?
219 North Drive.
Okay, please proceed.
I live at the corner of the, right where North Drive and Hearthstone intersect, right at the entrance to the park. My children have very easy access to the park. I just want to repeat what one of the previous speakers said regarding keeping the park as is for the quality of life. I do want to mention what somebody said about people not showing up. This is actually my first time coming here. It actually was very difficult. I am home for approximately half an hour a day. I gave up that time just to come. I think many people are like that as well. They just simply can't make it out. I work a whole day. It's very difficult. I do come out. I did just recently hear about it, but I don't think that shows that people don't care the fact that they didn't show up. I also want to mention that the corner of Cross and Massachusetts, a building, keeping that to, turning that into duplexes, of course, would increase the traffic and would be very hard. As it is, driving down Massachusetts, there's a lot of construction at the end, and the traffic is very difficult. It used to be a 2-minute drive to my daughter's school, now it can take 5-7 minutes. We live in a very pressured society. We, I think, have to, we need to get places right away, and traffic definitely is a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else that would like to come forward? Please state your name for the record.
Frank Friedman,
Spell your
Friedman.
And sir, please state your address for the record.
289 Dewey Avenue.
Do you affirm the testimony you give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but
Yeah, I affirm, okay. It's the first time I'm here, a little bit nervous, I guess, but,
Please speak in the mic.
okay, in the mic. Basically, I don't live in this side of town where they're talking about, but I grew up in Lakewood, and I used to drive bikes and stuff, and I never felt, I didn't see anybody getting hit by cars or kids getting knocked over. I witnessed already the last few years. I live, the duplexes with, these kids are living on driveways. It's basically a parking lot. I witnessed probably like 3 or 4 kids getting knocked over. I mean, nothing they didn't get injured. It's a miracle. I think a lot of miracles happened, but the density, besides the quality of life and all the traffic, there's a real safety concern. The density causes, I don't know how to consider with the zoning, but there's large families, the growth is very rapid. There's basements, there's a lot of stuff going, it's not just 9 to 5, people are coming, going, dropping off, not enough parking, and there's backing in and out, and like I said, obviously there's miracles. I heard a rabbi saying back 10 years ago, he said he walks by every day and he sees miracles that goes on. Besides, people aren't rushing, but it's got to be a smart plan. You want to have growth, but it's got to be smart. So that's, my concern. Like I said, I live in Lakewood. I grew up, around the 8th Street was developed, there's houses. We drove our bikes. I never, witnessed anybody getting hurt. And so that's basically my, my comments. All right? Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have any please come forward.
Moshe Schwartz, M-O-S-H-E-S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z. M-O-S-C-H-E-S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z.
Please speak into the mic.
your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to swear in, or?
Your address.
Oh, 140 Vintage Circle.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but
Yes. When my wife and I, a couple of years ago, were thinking about buying a home. We're considering different options, different areas. We're considering perhaps the Raintree area, which is zoned R15, R20, considering other areas which are R12. And we ended up choosing to live in the area, in a highly dense area, and the Ridge area, which is primarily zoned R75, some areas R10. One of the main reasons we chose to live there is because, being that we're Sabbath observant, obviously, which I think most of the town is, we're very concerned that on the Sabbath our kids should be able to have friends, shouldn't be limited to just a couple of neighbors that we have. I can tell you, my kids all the time, if we walk with them, if they're ready to walk 5 minutes, they have a whole load of friends to choose from, to play with. When it comes to going to synagogue, I don't want to, if I would have to walk 25 minutes to shul, I don't know how often my kids would be coming. The fact that we live in a highly dense area, have a choice of shuls, and my kids always come, that is very important for us. And I believe that is why I think most of us come from Brooklyn, and that's probably why parents chose that place. It's a highly dense area. We could always walk to people. On Sabbath, there's no choice of driving a car. We always have to get around, sometimes to share in other people's celebrations. 2 weeks ago, I must have walked to 3 schools to participate in different people's celebrations. That is what we do, that is what is important for us, and therefore I chose to live in a highly dense area. I think there are a lot of people that do like it. As far as the traffic is concerned, yes, it definitely is a concern. I don't think that has to affect how the planning board chooses with the housing. That is something we should all get up, maybe perhaps at a township meeting, and ask the township committee to do things. But to take it out, to change the way we live, I don't think that's the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to be heard, please step forward. Is there anybody who would like to be heard? Because now I'm closing it. Okay, so this will be the last one.
Okay.
Mr. Reed, you spoke yesterday. You have anything else to add?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
Aaron Hirsch, 146 Mountain View Drive.
Still on the road?
Yes.
You try to be brief, please.
Yes, I had spoken to the planner after the meeting last night. He told me that it wasn't official. I would like to reiterate, I'm requesting to be added to the master plan, the fiscal impact study, that before any development happens in this town, how is it going to affect the rest of this town? It should be added to the master plan. Is it going to raise everyone's taxes or make everyone's taxes lower? We need to know that before any development is approved. It's got to be part of the checklist. Extremely important. Number 2. There was a draft from the density subcommittee on April 4th of this 2017. Mr. Langkry and Ms. Gill and Simon all got sick. And on that draft, it said no density. And those were noticed meetings in the newspapers. Then there were some other meetings upstairs that the public was not privy to. And I was at the meetings that was noticed, and all these zone changes were not at those meetings. So I don't even know how we can even consider it, because it needs to have public debate. There was no public debate and notice for those. Those zone changes should not have been given later. It should have been given during the subcommittee meetings. They were not given then. And I don't understand how we can even consider those if it wasn't brought up for public discussion. Now, developers are saying that we need more housing, I guarantee you the future residents really are not really begging for such high density where their kids can't go out in the backyard and play or in the front. Housing. There are zones in Lakewood. We're not saying people aren't able to build. We're just saying, don't kill us and squash us in like cockroaches. People have moved out of the city. If you want to go to a city, you could go to the city, but they have grids. Sadly, in our town, we've given up those grids, and if we over-densify, we are going to, I don't want to say what we could do, the potential for safety of the future of our town. And our town really depends on that. Now, I really have to commend Brian for he didn't come up with a new recommendation of an R5 or an R3, where I'm waiting, thank God it didn't come up in this master plan, because he's trying to push the book at everything. So thank God for that. Now, yeah, so there are zones in Lakewood that were created many years ago. We've increased the density many times over. We can't keep on making that. The roads were created based on fewer cars per household and much larger lots, the R40s we started off. We've eliminated a lot of the roads. We've increased density time after time after time, and there's just no more place to go. And with time, the logistics has changed. People have more cars. There's nowhere to move. It has become a safety issue, and plenty of people, I can tell you, my neighborhood also, people are running out of the town. We can't handle it. Don't chase us out. I thank you for your service. You guys are decent people, and I thank you. And please understand that, not every single person in this town has the energy and the capability to come out every night. So someone that says the last election, don't start analyzing elections, because I could give them a straight out what happened this last election. This last election is for the books, because at 33 towns in Ocean County, we got 20% of the votes came out of here. So there's a whole different reason. I could be more than happy at another time. Don't stop bringing the elections. There's a lot more to it. It's not, okay? The people of this town would like to live like normal people. And don't squash us, that's all. Please be considerate. You're here to serve us, we can't make it to every meeting, and that's why there's elected officials, so they can run the town, because everyone can't come to every meeting, and that's why this board's set up, because the elected officials can't possibly do every meeting as well. There has to be delegations, everyone's delegated to serve the people, and this is what the people want. Thank you very much for your help, and we hope that you consider not changing the zones to high density. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
If I may, I may take matters to public, it will take 2 minutes, okay? 2 minutes, thank you. I live on 18 Geffen Drive.
Sir,
Avram Schubert.
give it up yet?
I'm sorry, no.
Please state your name and address.
Avram
You spoke last night?
Schubert, yes.
Is there anything else to add?
Yes. Yes. No, no.
Do you recognize him?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 minutes instead of...
Okay. We were here in July. I live on 18 Geffen Drive in White Oaks. Justin, there was an attempt by the builders on Burnside Avenue to rezone them from R15 to R10, and many people in our neighborhood came out. They were very concerned. Justin told us there will not be any changes. You could all go home. Lo and behold, last night, we somehow found out that, no, there's going to be changes. There was no public who was aware of this. There was no public awareness. It was just like an underhanded way that it was slipped through. Justin was there last night, and you're aware of what occurred in July, and just like it was okay, no problem, we're good. The reason why it didn't happen is because the public in that neighborhood is very concerned, and it's R15, it's in my backyard. We don't want any changes. It flows at R15, that's what it should be. Okay, that's fine. Brian Flannery, who was sworn in under oath, said that our neighborhood is a cluster zone, it fits into it, and it's very disheartening when a professional comes in and tells us our neighborhood is a cluster, it fits in, it's R12, with approvals, everything fits in, when there's nothing happening. Our neighborhood didn't have any type of variance. It conforms to R15. We're all 15,000 square foot. If the developers and the investors who bought that property just 2 years ago, they knew it's R15. It's wrong for them to come in an underhanded way to just change it to R12. If they want to go and make changes, let them go to the planning board, let them go to the zoning board, show what type of plans they want, work with us, show what they want, and we'll see what we can do. But don't make changes to the neighborhood when it doesn't belong there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The whole portion is closed now. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and speaking and voicing their opinions. We will all take it into consideration. No, it's not.
Okay, the matter is certainly not over. There was no further public comment. We closed the meeting. No one else came up after you made the announcement. You're the last person. So now the board, now that you've heard everything, now you're in a position to determine if the draft plan is satisfactory. If you want to add anything, if you want to take anything out, I suggest you review what you want Mr. Truscott to put in terms of revisions. And I'm sorry, Mr. Hill, I just want to go over, I've repeatedly went through the rules on this, and we've had some comments, why can't you answer questions, et cetera. We have been answering questions, technical questions about what's in the plan, et cetera. But as I've said, you really can't answer a question as an individual member of the board, because it's until the board makes its collective decision and deliberates that anything needs to be. So I think that's what you need to do now. You need to have a discussion about whether the plan that everybody's reviewed and is familiar with, whether it's satisfactory, or whether you want to have Mr. Truscott make any changes, and if so, what those changes should be. Then when you come back for a final vote, that's when I think it's important that everybody certify that they've read all the transcripts, satisfied with everything, and you make the final vote.
Based on all that we're saying tonight, that we understand what the master plan committee, what they recommended, we're not taking a vote on it tonight. If we advance it to the next meeting, it's based on this master plan, what they recommended, and we'll see what everybody votes on the October 3rd.
Well, so is that what you're saying? You want the plan?
We're here for the board members.
What do you want to have on file that'll be voted on 10 days from the time? No, I'm sorry, what's the date you said the meeting would be?
October 3rd.
October 3rd.
Okay, so when is 10 days before do we have to notice for it?
Let me just clarify for a second. October 3rd is a regular scheduled plan board. Correct, right? October 3rd is a regular scheduled plan board meeting. So the document, right, so the document has to be recorded at least 10 days before the board can take a formal vote and adopt the master plan.
Correct.
Okay.
And the question is, to vote on it, everything you want in it should be on file 10 days before. So I think somebody has to alert Mr. Truscott to what the board wants in it. If there are any revisions or changes from what the document was that we had at the start of these proceedings.
A number of changes were discussed last time.
10 days before, I believe it would be September 22nd, and Friday, September 22nd. Mr. Jackson, are you required to renotice, or are we making that announcement tonight?
We'll make the announcement. I have to check whether we have to renotice. I don't think so. We'll make an announcement. Because
I would open up to any board members that have any comments about this draft. Angela, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I just
Please be
wanted
quiet.
to touch on something with regard to SD Court. I was very happy to see that residents had come out to talk about it, since I was the person that said we should come back here today.
And we need it. It was a full night.
When I look at the draft master plan on page 26, for A1 agricultural, it says agricultural uses can be deleted as permitted uses. Other permitted uses are single-family detached dwellings, blah, 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 2 acres. So when Brian spoke yesterday, his position was we should rezone from A1 to basically any other residential district.
Residential that was conforming to the area.
Well, A1 is residential.
Okay.
So when the individuals came up, I was happy, and then I heard we want it rezoned to residential. It's already residential. So I felt like it was asking my daughter says she's hungry, and I say, what do you want to eat? She says, I don't know. And it goes on for quite a while, and I'm asking her. And here's the thing.
Mr. Franklin recommended yesterday that it should be like R20 or R12, whatever the surrounding areas are.
But I didn't hear why. What are you not getting? It's a 2-acre lot in a 2-acre zone that allows single-family residential that you're not, what are you not getting? Are you not allowed to put up a shed? Are you not allowed to put in a pool? What is the issue? And I still didn't hear that. That's my position. I was listening yesterday. I respectfully said I didn't hear that as a way to kind of open it up so someone could make a compelling argument. And I didn't hear it again, and I'm sorry I didn't.
Angela, I don't think that we're advancing on those issues tonight.
Okay.
I think we're basically going on the original recommendations. Mr. Franklin?
I for one, I would, any recommendations that were made by the Master Plan Advisory Board, we should certainly take into account the recommendations that came afterwards. Perhaps we should just forward to the Township Committee for their consideration, because, these are things that were brought up to the advisory board that were deliberated, and they've been noted here at the planning board meetings. They've been represented, and perhaps we should just forward them along to the Township Committee as part of our draft document, which whatever that document's going to look like, for their consideration.
I think that if it goes to the Township Committee, if the Township Committee wants us to look at it, we'll send it back to the planning, but I'll be open to the public again.
I think that makes sense, Mr. Chairman. I think what Justin is suggesting makes sense, and it's prudent, and it makes sense to send the recommendation to the Township Committee and then go from there.
I do want to make a few comments based on, just so we're clear, and I want to ask Marty and Stan to confirm these things. We do have a recommendation in the master plan, and it's been brought up several times for an emergency annex on Massachusetts Avenue, and and the address was, what was it, 1536. We do have that recommendation in the master plan, but I just want to confirm that it's in there, it's a strong recommendation. I know it was talked about during the master plan advisory board hearings, and that's in the master plan.
We all result in a change in zoning.
Yeah, I just want to confirm a few things before we perhaps move the document along to be on public record before the formal vote. Also, contained within the master plan, if I remember correctly, were also recommendations for that the town set aside certain areas within that corridor, within the triangle corridor. I'm talking about Massachusetts Cross Street for open space and recreation. I think that was discussed at the master plan hearings, and I'm pretty sure it's contained within the document. I just want to...
Yes. To answer your question, yes, it is. But if the planning board wants to further emphasize and strengthen the recommendation that open space areas, and actually more specifically, and it was mentioned in the 2013 Smart Growth Plan, that an area was recommended, or an area should be set aside for park and recreation, to provide a complete, comprehensive community there. And I think that recommendation should be reemphasized and strengthened if it's not clear in the master plan document.
And it should, because not only did the master plan recommend more open space and recreation within new residential developments, which is something that many members of the public brought up, and that's something we spoke about at the master plan hearings, that, you know, and I think I said, and some other master plan committee members said, you know, the old tot lot is not, it's just not sufficient. You do have to have more space within developments for children to play, and frankly, for adults to have recreation too. I mean, to be able to walk around, walk outside, and not to sound like a broken record, but I always bring up the fairways. It's a beautiful development, 1,100 homes, and you have walking paths, and it looks nice. And these are strong recommendations that we made in the master plan document. And I just want to make sure that whatever document we're going to move for a formal vote contains those strong recommendations. Also, for when it comes to approving new development in the future, especially for some of these areas that will see residential development, I think it's important that the master plan reinforce to the township that you have to look at an entire area, really. Like, if we're talking about setting aside parks, and, you know, it's nice to say we're going to set aside certain areas for parks and recreation, but you have to look at an entire area and say, okay, if this is going to be developed in accordance with certain development standards, you have to make sure that it's that you're going to have the appropriate open space, not that each application comes in one at a time. That you have a general plan for the area, and of course that may be modified slightly. You know, nobody has a crystal ball to decipher exactly what's going to happen, but you know that the entire area is going to be looked at, not just piece by piece.
And I would totally agree with that. In fact, that's the intent of the center development component. It's not only just focusing on individual developments, but looking at the comprehensive whole. And there's been a lot of testimony that we've heard with regards to the need for connecting streets and grid type development. And it's important that the ordinances, and again, if the plan document isn't clear on that, we will make sure that it is, that that developments need to be working together so that there's street connections, that, as you suggested, there's a regulating plan that identifies areas that potentially are for open space purposes, so you don't have, you have one comprehensive plan with open space and integrated road connections, commercial components there, so that it all works as a community and not as disparate developments. It's hard work, and the work that needs to take place is at the ordinance level to craft a proper ordinance to make sure those setbacks, the open space, the buffer areas, all work together to create a new community.
They have to, because you know, until now, you know, we've been dealing with development in this town application by application, and that has to change, because there has to be, and that's really the whole purpose of this master plan document, and that's what was worked on for the last 12 to 14 months, and that's what we've been deliberating for the last 4 nights. I also wanted, if we're going to move along this document, I want the document to be clear also that, you know, and at the planning board level, you know, I think John was the first one to bring it up and really emphasize that we're talking about wider streets within residential developments, streets that are, we threw out 36 to 40 feet wide. We're talking about more open space, more recreation. These things have to be shown on development applications before they're even considered, not only to come to the planning board, but before they're even under some sort of, when they're on the checklist, before you go to a tech meeting. I mean, these things have to be on the plan. We can't have development in this town anymore by, we'll show it later on, but it looks okay, right? That has to be contained within the master plan document. That development applications have to be complete. They have to be whole. They have to comply with this document. And if they don't, there better be a good reason why they don't.
And that we can again emphasize in the revised draft that's exactly right. And I think the point you make in terms of the streets, and we heard the discussion on streetways, and that's important because one of the things we also heard from the public related to pedestrian and bicycle safety. Clearly, the board's policy has, as the chairman has emphasized, that the board's policies in reviewing development applications are to ensure that sidewalks are in place. But it's as important to establish a circulation plan both internally within developments and externally that provides for bicycle lanes, provides for adequate sidewalks, or what in planning jargon we call complete streets. So as Mr. Franklin said, that there needs to be sufficient width in that street to make all those things happen within new developments. It's hard to retrofit existing streets and you do as best as you can, but where new development takes place, those streets have to be designed in a way that is pedestrian safe, bicyclist safe, and provides for adequate circulation.
And there was something else that was brought up that we haven't been discussing the last few nights, but it was brought up at the master plan advisory board level. And there was an area, and we talked about designating certain areas for schools. There was an area off Shorrock Street that was discussed as a possible area for further large-scale school development. And I don't know if that was included in the master plan document.
Who owns these properties?
I'm not sure. I think it's mainly municipal property. I may be wrong, but I just wanted to bring that up because that could be.
Well, let's try to get Cedar Bridge development as a school zone. This way we found a use for it. They're not paying taxes on it anyway. So it'll be a win-win. We get everybody out of the industrial park and get back our rateables so our taxes could go down. And that would be a great place to put it.
I just want to stress, I think our recommendation for the township committee, we definitely do need a school zone.
You could think of a better school zone than that?
I hear you. My opinion is that the Cedar Ridge Corporate Park, I think there are at least 5 Class A 50 to 60,000 square foot office buildings being built right now. So I don't know by introducing schools into the corporate park, I think maybe you'd be duplicating what's happening in the industrial park. Again, that's just my opinion. But I hear you.
Our recommendation is strongly we need a school zone. If it's Cedar Ridge or it's Shorrock Road.
The municipality has land, and there's got to be more land set aside for future school development, which is outside the industrial parks, corporate parks,
We want to try, like Mr. Fulton said, not to lose our rateables right now.
Yeah, and just, I just want to add that recommendation for identification of a school district or school zones that concentrate schools, I think is a sound one from a planning perspective. I think what the board should be considering is not so much selecting one right now, but recommending that a comprehensive evaluation of the appropriate location of that school district based on factors that we've heard from the public in currently concerns of safety and traffic are addressed in that comprehensive study. There is as was mentioned, there's a traffic circulation study being conducted as we speak by Mazer, and I think that evaluation of where these schools should be located from a standpoint of land use, public safety, pedestrian safety, and circulation requires really a comprehensive evaluation and analysis. But I think the concept is a big one from the planning perspective.
And one thing on that we spoke about, if we do we allow schools in all zones to make sure that the buffering is in there, whatever it is, 50-foot gates, trees,
Maybe conditional use.
That's what I think.
Conditional use.
Gives you a chance to try it out. If it's a property. Parking, playground, no I just think when we have schools in all zones, we should be considerate to all the neighbors and make sure that there's enough buffer, everybody should feel comfortable living where they are.
Is that, and we just want clarification, is the board recommending that the schools be conditional uses with appropriate conditions? Is that what that's like, the recommendation from the board?
I don't know, make it conditional, just, I would make the buffer. What's your opinion? Board is tired, I think, on that.
Yeah, they're tired or tired?
Both.
I am tired, yeah.
I'm not so sure it should be conditional, but I do think that we have to really consider all the buffers around.
Well, let me make this recommendation. If the board is going to make a final vote at the October meeting, possibly we could make a list of potential conditions, and then the board can make a determination at that point.
Which one we're voting on, which one?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
No problem, thank you.
Unless
Well,
Mr. Jackson.
I think to develop the conditions and the conditional use criteria, that's complicated business. You're not saying that it has to be conditional. What you're saying to the governing body is that they should consider imposing conditions on schools for zones where schools are permitted. And they would define the conditions, and they would decide whether they need it or not. But I think you recommend that be investigated.
To make it be more user-friendly with the neighbors.
Well, no, so that a site is more appropriate for a school as of right, otherwise it has to go to the Board of Adjustment for what they call a D variance. There's a higher standard for D variance, and when you don't meet the conditions. If they meet the conditions, then they come to the planning board, and it's more of a by right application. So I think it's complicated business to figure out what the conditions should be, and they might be different depending on the zone.
That's correct, and I tend to agree with Mr. Jackson's approach that you shouldn't necessarily be establishing the conditions, but recommending to the governing body that such standards as appropriate be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Okay, is there any other recommendations? Well, yeah.
We had a preponderance of talk on Force and Massachusetts tonight. Those are both county roads. And I think as soon as possible, we should get together with the county, maybe even before October 1st, and get an idea how they can work with us.
Okay.
That's a good idea. And also, I don't know, somebody.
One other thing,
Mr. Franklin.
Michael.
Right.
Is it Mike? I'm sorry. The zoning of the Eagle Ridge Golf Course, they
Everybody stop saying I can't hear you, we'll hear Mr. Franklin, so get ready now, I guess.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes. The rezoning of the Lakewood Golf Course to that designation that Rob came up with and told us about, that it can't be sold off for any development.
So your proposal is that the new plan, say Eagle Ridge, would be...
Well, there was a zone, Rob, how did that zone work?
I'll say, if you wanted, it should be our 40B, right?
Yes.
What is an R40B?
That it doesn't allow schools. I'm of the opinion that a school should be allowed in all zones, within the schools, but there should be, the township committee should make, work in with all the neighborhoods, whatever conditions we need. We should really look onto all the conditions of schools.
So Mr. Franklin has a proposal.
Right.
And I think you should poll the board on whether that should be the final version. His proposal, I think, is that the Eagle Ridge course schools be prohibited and be a 40B zone. With what conditions?
There was a designation that Rob told us about that it couldn't be sold off to the developer.
So it would have to remain as a single parcel?
Open space?
As open space?
The landfill can't be sold.
Okay. We'll look into it.
How about getting back vacated streets so we can have a traffic flow?
I think Mr. Franklin has a proposal. I'm not disregarding it, but I think you should tell the planner if the final version will have the change to the Eagle Ridge Golf Course track that Mr. Franklin. One person said it, what did the other members say?
Mrs. Lansman?
My opinion, I think the designated golf course is open space. It was private property, it's still private property. The designated is open space. If you give the same designation that you give, let's say, a park, like Pine Park, Ocean County Park, I personally don't think it's appropriate.
Yes, you want by the municipality for that.
I think to designate something on a zoning map as open space, private property is open space, I don't think any of us would be happy if a zoning map designated our house as open space to be used in perpetuity for open space. I don't think that's the proper designation for any private property. Because then you're saying it's open space similar to, let's say, public space, and it's not, it's private space. So, I mean, that's...
Okay, I agree with that.
Do you agree with that, or Mr. Funk?
I don't feel like I'm smart enough to make that
Okay, so
decision.
you're going to restrain on that? Refrain, recuse. I'm in trouble finding my words tonight, sorry.
John, does anyone ever make an argument?
Abstain, that's the word I was looking for. I'm sorry.
Did someone make an argument that if it's rezoned as open space, that it was a taking of property?
Well, I know the committees looked at this, and they had a lot of discussion on it, and I think Mr. Flint's found, it's a heck of a thing to take somebody's property and say you can't develop it. I don't think that should be done lightly. However,
I think with the other restrictions on the property that are already there, the landfill was there, the trees, all the other stuff, I think there's enough background there that you could do that.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Franklin.
Okay, Mr. Franklin, the only thing is they testified, that's under the DEP jurisdiction. And if there's any landfills, any wetlands, they will not be able to build regardless.
So right now, we have, Mr. Franklin wants to revise the plan to make it open space. Two members have said, no, they disagree with that. One member has refrained, is constrained. And Angela,
I think I would agree with the chairman and Justin. I don't feel I have enough information to say yes, but I'm opting for no instead of abstaining.
I'll go back to what was mentioned about having a school zone, is what I would like, not individual schools. I think would make the buses more efficient. We have buses running all over town, that's part of the traffic problem we have. By having a zone, we'd be going in one direction to one stop.
Okay, thank you.
so you don't think you think the golf course it should not allow schools to follow the recommendation otherwise for the zoning. So I think it's 3 to 2. I don't know.
It's 3 to leave it.
2-1.
To leave it, we'll vote by the
And
final
what
vote.
about the issue of not allowing schools in that zone?
My
You had
recommendation-
said yours is that it should.
My recommendation, we should leave it the way it is, and we should put all conditions in what that should be appropriate.
How does everyone else feel about that, Mr. Flansbrough?
Mr. Flint?
He spoke about it at the master plan, and the master plan report states that schools should continue to be a permitted use in all zones. If the school is, if there's, I've never seen, sometimes when you want to exclude certain uses from certain areas, you might do a study, the township could, I've never, we could deliberate back and forth, but I've never seen anything, if that's from a professional that says, that's not the proper use. it's tough to say that certain uses should just be excluded, such, like schools from certain zones in this town. I think they should be geared towards certain areas, but the fact of the matter is, there's like 130 schools in this town. And I think there's going to continue to be more, and that's an issue that we have to deal with.
So you don't think that should be excluded from the golf course? Franklin, what about the idea to exclude that from the golf course?
There's a TNM recommendation last night, Tom.
I just think you have to poll the members to find out what should be put in that advisory board.
Right now, it's R40.
And currently, the way the master plan is drafted, schools would be permitted in all zones. And I think the board has made a recommendation that the committee consider proposing conditions that are appropriate zone by zone. But the question on the floor now is whether you would exclude the golf course from schools.
It's a permitted use in any zone, that's a permitted use, and it should be a conditional use that they got to follow.
All board conditions.
Okay, so you're against that exclusion. So that, what do the other members think?
Angela, you agree with that?
My concern, I sit here and I think about a school zone, like all the schools are in a certain area, and everyone's going to that area, and that's still congestion. It's, if it's a local school, then, okay, you're going to have buses stopping, and, I think we all experience it in any town, depending on what time of day you go, and you can get stuck behind a school bus.
I just want to add one thing, I'm sorry, but we spoke at the first meeting that any school, we're going to make that they can't pull over on the road, we have to make a special turnaround for buses to accommodate them. We want the traffic to flow.
Right, and I think I spoke about the motor vehicle law and how there has to be a barrier in order to make that happen.
Right, I remember.
And then I think about in New Jersey, how we have these large regional school districts and battles over the length of the bus ride, kids from Seaside Park going all the way to Bayville for Central Regional. And, and when you think about the children, what that's like to sit on the bus or not have friends near where you
I
live.
sit for now on the bus. I know we're going to blocks. I'm not going to blocks. They're going to industrial park.
So I, at this point, I'm not swayed that prohibiting schools in that area fixes anything.
If you do agree, we should make it accommodate to the area of the schools.
Yeah.
For the buses and everything. Okay.
One more member.
Mr. Dave?
As I stated, I'm still for using a school zone in a locale like Cedar Ridge. We could have free flow of traffic, it's a very small amount of traffic. Buses could deliver the kids to school. I'm talking within Lakewood. I'm not talking going to Asbury, any other town.
Just Lakewood is 25 square miles.
Okay, but
We're in a big area.
it's still not 100.
Okay,
And the buses are going to these anyway. And I'm still for the
Make it a special school. I think we all recommend that. And I think when there would be a school zone, we would alleviate a lot of schools in all these areas.
So it sounds like there is not a vote is to not exclude schools.
Not exclude,
But
right.
remain with the theme that conditional use criteria should be developed.
Right.
Appropriate to the zone with appropriate.
Right.
The only exception to that would be that proposed airport business commercial zone where schools would get it.
That was excluded, right.
Yes,
That was excluded.
that would be accepted.
Do you have any? And the only recommendation, what you said before, I recommended the township should not vacate any properties. Every street, every paper street has to be developed. We need sidewalks, we need to grid as many streets as possible over here.
How do we get them back?
Well, you could condemn them, and they would have to take it, that would be the property, the governing body would have to then condemn that property.
That's a good recommendation.
Well, you know what you should do, you could make a recommendation that the planning board urges the governing body to not vacate any streets, because we need all our public streets, and if nothing else, you just approve that.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that's included.
Yeah, that's
And
included.
should be developed with sidewalks.
And should be developed. we're practical.
We're practical. It's full silence.
And Justin, you said that's already in there.
That should, yeah, that's in, again, I think it should be in some, perhaps in two of the subcommittee reports, recommendations, I think it's in the transportation subcommittee report, recommendations against vacating any streets in the future. Yeah, I mean, that's in the document. I just want, a lot of these things are contained within the document. I mean, that's what I was saying, but it's good to confirm that these things are there.
And again, we spoke about, to make sure that it's there, the impact fee, that every builder should pay his fair share. The impact fee should be in every zone in town, every street, every builder should pay their fair share. And I would just like to add that the money collected in impact fee should go strictly, separate account, strictly for fixing roads in town. It should not go to anything else. I don't know if it's legal to take it or anything else. Our recommendation is it should stay for roads in town.
And to clarify, based on the ordinance, it is actually, the impact fee plan specifies specifically those improvements that are to be funded, and it only goes to that, because
Not
impact
useful.
only goes to.
Does not go into general account.
No, it does not, only for for specific improvements that's in the ordinance.
Which is the most necessary, right, the most needed right now.
That's right. And statutorily, that's the only way that we have a basis for collecting that, other than off-track improvements. Under the TID statute, where the statutes allow the TID, those monies have to be dedicated, they have to be, you have to have a plan in place, you have to have specific improvements, and then you have an estimate of costs, an allocation of those costs to the developers, which is the foundation of the fee. So it's very strict that has to be complied with.
And we also need, I don't know how the county figures out how much the developer should pay. We need to know that it's based on the county's figurations, I don't know, but we have to have a set amount to know that we're going to figure it out. Every developer's coming in now, we start being collecting immediately.
So the recommendation would be then that the committee create criteria and amounts. I mean, we can't do that. That's what you're saying. Just to go back, there were, through the hearings, a couple zones where the board preliminarily discussed revising, downzoning. I think Angela said you didn't want to do that one, or do you want to change any of the zones, or do you want the plan that comes in to be consistent with the committee recommended, the various committees recommended in their original draft documents? So I know there was a lot of back and forth that was coming out, you've heard all the comment. What do you want to do? Because you said earlier you want the plan to be the same as what was first put in front of you. I mean, is that what you were referring to?
Well, yeah, maybe I might break this out in pieces. And I heard, and again, we want to make sure we're hearing you correctly. I heard that you, with regards to the additional recommendations that were presented before the board by Mr. Flannery, that you are deferring those, you're not making those changes, and that you're deferring any decision on those to the committee, that the township committee, as they might want to make in the future. Is that correct?
If they want to make it, they'll send it back to us with the ordinance or whatever.
Okay, so to the extent that Mr. Flannery made a recommendation, any of these additional recommendations, that's, we're not making any changes, whatever was reflected in the plan.
I think there was made six recommendations.
However, there is one recommendation that came from the public, not from Mr. Flannery, with regards to what's already in the draft with regards to the, we picked up, remember, the 2007 recommendation at Hartstone for the ARP 7.5, and I think you've heard a pretty significant amount of testimony from the public, as that's not being included in the plan.
That wasn't even, frankly, it wasn't even brought up to the master plan committee.
So that should continue to be shown as R12. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
And that should be included in the request that will be voted to the township committee. They wouldn't consider that.
Yeah, in other words, that's Mr. Flannery, or it was originally in 2007. The committee wants to consider it fine, but the master plan should show that area as R12.
As it's current.
That's as it's currently.
How about getting rid of townhouses and duplexes?
altogether.
Why can't we just do single-family houses, whatever the zone is, put a smaller house for the, use the duplexes in the townhouse?
Maybe what your recommendation could be is that the committee study the prospect
Maybe
of...
they should study, because my recommendation, I think that we need all size of houses.
Size is fine.
Size, we may need duplexes if it's cheaper, but I think they should have a study on it and they should decide where to dig.
No, you're not making a recommendation that that be taken out of any zone, but that be investigated further.
It should be investigated further.
Is that...
I think that would
Definitely, I would even say to get rid of it.
I would make a recommendation that they should investigate it. Is that the what's...
John, what do you think about the townhouses and the duplexes? Get rid of them.
I think there should be an investigation. Agree with getting rid of it.
I'm sorry?
I don't agree with getting rid of it.
I don't either.
What about agree with looking into...
I agree with looking
Not
into it,
getting
yeah.
rid of it, investigate it,
Yeah.
study to determine if any change.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We all agree on that.
Anyone else want to comment on that? So is there a consensus on what the plan should look like?
I think we should start that...
Can I just make one more comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
If the board's behind it, can we take out the bridge over the lake thing? I mean, there was a recommendation for a bridge over the lake.
It's not there, try
Well,
driving
there
over
is.
there.
I think there's a recommendation in the report.
I tried driving
In the
over there,
transportation
yeah.
report. Not to make a joke, but there's a recommendation for a bridge over the lake. I personally don't like that idea.
People who use cars over
All right,
there.
but let's go back to what Mr. Coleman's proposal. So what I'm hearing from the board, there's not a majority support to just eliminate townhouses.
I think we should make a study.
I don't think we should eliminate them. I think we should agree.
Well, 3-3, the motion doesn't pass. That's, tie goes to the runner, or doesn't go to the runner.
But I think that we do have a consensus that they should...
But it
make a
seems
study.
unanimous that the committee should investigate and reevaluate, reassess duplexes and townhomes
Bring it back to us.
and make recommendations for it. Or, delegate it to the committee, but that should be investigated further.
Mr. Chairman, going back to the zoning request, there was one submitted by letter. I think we put it on the dais last night for the area, it was a downtown area, the shifting of the B2 zone in the RM zone. That will be one that will also carry over and send to the township committee.
Yes.
So I just want to acknowledge that one. And then secondly, there was another letter that was discussed, but the expansion of the airport business zone, that just came in. So that also will be carried over, duly noted, but sent to the township committee.
Right. Okay, so basically, I think you have an idea what the draft should be, and we will publicize. Mr. Jackson, would you say anything?
I don't, we'll make the announcement at the October...
22nd, I think she said? No?
23rd.
October 3rd,
Yeah.
regularly
October 3rd.
scheduled planning board meeting, public hearing.
So October 3rd, I'll make that announcement at the appropriate time, but what I would, Mr. Truscott has his instructions as to what revisions will be made to that document, he will incorporate that. I would urge you to get it in more than 10 days before, so that if a member looks at it and says something has to be revised, we can still get the, if there's a type of draft glare or something along those lines, we can still get it on file 10 days before October 3rd. So the announcement that I'm going to make tonight, and this, I'll have to investigate further whether I have to send out those. You do. Make a motion to carry the final vote based upon a filing of a final document to October 3rd, based upon, ask for a motion in a second.
I'll move it. I'll carry carry the final the vote of the final document to October 3rd.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Mr. Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Herzl.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman. Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
Mr. Garfield.
Yes. Right, members of the public who are here, please be advised that the master plan shall be on file 10 days before October 3rd at least. And on October 3rd, 2017, 6 o'clock at this meeting hall, this planning board will consider for adoption the final revised version of the proposed master plan.
Thank you, and I would like to thank everybody for coming out. We greatly appreciate you participating and giving your input. Thank you, and have a good night. We're adjourned.